Hi everyone, and welcome back to Farrand on Film. And for the first top 10 in a while, it's been a while since we've done one of these bad boys. I am with Ollie, who you'll be able to see, Holly, who you will see intermittently as she's parenting. There you go.
Because of the state of Virgin Media and
Parenting at the
amongst
same
other
time
things.
and all that kind of jazz. Yeah. So we're recording two, but this is the first one. We're gonna do our top 10 or bottom 10 worst films. It's
Yes.
about time that we did this, that we just absolutely let rip on
I'm
some
pretty
awful
sure it was
stuff.
me and Holly that really kind of pushed you to do it. We were the ones who were like, oh, come on, do a worst films. We've done like best of this, best of this, best of it. Let's do a worst. Let's just see the negativity. And you were like, no, I don't want to be that podcast for ages. And we've broken you. We've got through to you finally.
You've broken me. Mainly because I'm thinking, as soon as I write the word worst in the YouTube title, so many people are going to watch it to go, what are they saying is the worst?
Some firm clickbait there, especially in India, where we're still apparently massive.
We are still big in India. Apparently so. So, I don't know if you two did this, but I did this for both lists that we're about to do. So this is the top 10 worst films. The one that you will see after this one is our basically crap that we love. Rubbish films that other people think that they're rubbish, but we think that they're good.
We will die on the hill.
Yeah. Now, I had a look at the IMDb ratings for both of my lists. On my crap I love list, all of them, nothing is higher than a 5.9. All of them are in between the fives, okay? For this one, for my worst films, the lowest rating is 2.9. The highest rating is 7.1. So,
I literally haven't taken anything like that into account. It is literally my experience of these films.
Yes.
Like, even for worst, where like looking at my list now, I don't think any of these are controversial picks. I don't think anybody would look at these and think, what are you talking about? That's a good film.
Okay.
The most you will get is, oh, it's not bad though. That's the best defense you would get of any of these, but they are all bad films.
The thing that's making me nervous is what happens if one of our picks ends up on another person's crap I love list.
But then that really solidifies it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It solidifies it because like it's a bad film, but someone finds some joy in it, which is actually quite nice.
Yes.
I've got one that I reckon is fully in there. Not maybe for anybody here right now, but it's definitely a guilty pleasure for people.
Okay.
I've done the same as you, Adam, but I've done the Rotten Tomatoes rating for everything.
Yeah.
So for my worst films, I think the highest Rotten Tomatoes score is 59%, and then the lowest is 11%.
So they're all rotten because 60% is fresh, isn't it?
Yeah, but in the second podcast we're going to do, the ones I love, the highest rating is 64 and the lowest is 17.
Right.
Wow.
There we go. That's what we want.
Bad. It's very bad.
That's what we want to hear. Right. So, honorable mentions to kick off, or dishonorable mentions at that point. So again, I've got a 7 that were milling around my list, and then eventually all dropped off. So Spy Kids All the Time in the World, absolute trash. Norbit, absolute dog do.
Oh my god, your list is going to be like way worse than mine. If these didn't make
the list. Peter Rabbit.
Oh god.
Yeah. The Snowman, the supposed thriller with Michael Fassbender.
Oh, okay.
That's rough. Battle Los Angeles. These aliens want to come down and collect water for some reason. Who cares? Jonah Hex. And one of the most recent ones on my list, but not quite because my number 10 pips it. It came out this year, Infinity Pool. Absolute trash.
I've not even heard of Infinity
Pool. It's got people in it that I like. It's got a Skarsgård in it. I think it's Alexander Skarsgård who's in it. It's got Mia Goth in it. It's directed by Brandon Cronenberg. Absolute drivel. Honestly. Right. Ollie, you got any?
Kind of. I'm still not fully decided. I've got an interesting one for number 10 in that it's between two, and I might let you guys decide which one of the two it
Okay.
is. But it was originally one of four. Because I was thinking, to kind of spoil where it's coming from, I was thinking animated, from our childhood animated as well.
Okay.
And I'm midway through watching it again. I do specifically remember when we did the Disney Tier podcast saying my least favorite one was Aristocats. And it still is down there, but it was a lot funnier than I ever remember it being. So that kind of put it down a little bit as well.
Okay.
The other one, and you two are going to get your pitchforks and torches out, is Jungle Book. I'm sorry. I went into it. I wanted to like it. I really wanted to like it. It's a mess.
On a worst film list, though.
Yeah. It represents everything that was wrong with Disney at the time and why they were just bleeding money. Everything. But, like I said, it didn't make the top 10.
Good.
It didn't make the top 10. But it was in contention there for a while. But the two that I've got in place of it that I'm tempted to kind of let you two kind of argue over, decide, or help me decide, they are just objectively worse. Like,
okay,
for all of the stuff I say about Jungle Book, there are bits of it I like. There are bits of it that I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to ever watching that again. Whereas these two, it's a bit like I'd be fine never watching them again.
Okay. Holly, have you got any dishonorable mentions?
I can't believe Ollie's come straight in with that hot take on Jungle Book.
It's not a hot take. It wasn't critically well received, Carl.
I think some of the honourable mentions that I didn't put on the list because I was in the room while these films were on, but I can't really say I watched them. Just sort of rubbish you put on as a teacher at the end of term. I used to work at a summer school, so there'd be like a movie night every week. So it'd be things like Twilight series. I don't know how many of them I've seen, but I've seen too many of them. They've all blurred into one. Transformers.
We remember what Holly just said for later, by the way.
Yeah.
Just any series like that, really. There are just so many, which is just a total drop one after the other, and I've just had to sit in the Ice Ages. I hate the Ice Ages, and I've seen at least 3 of those. But yeah, because I can't like pick them out as individual films, and I haven't put any of them on my list.
Like
Transformers
and Fast and Furious, they're not separate films at this point. It's just an amorphous blob of media.
I think Fast and Furious is just a weird one in that series has like gone full 360 and is now quite good. I don't know. We could argue that one, but I think some of the latest ones are like so ridiculously jumped over the shark that they're pretty cool now.
They've lost the shark completely.
Yeah, the shark. Yeah. They jumped over the shark and have ended up on the moon. They jumped so high over the shark.
Yes.
Yeah, and fair dues to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to kick us off with my number 10. My number 10 is the lowest rated according to IMDb on my list and is the most recent. 2023, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Now,
what a start!
I don't know what I was expecting from it, but I think curiosity got the better of me, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a watch. And my God, just absolute tripe. And what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to, on the Wikipedia pages, pulling out little bits of other people's reviews that I can sort of quote that show you how I'm feeling. Lack of humour, poor acting, and an incoherent screenplay summarising that the film failed to meet even the basic of expectations. Yes, it did. It is absolute guff. Nothing good happens in it. It's not even like we'll get to this mainly in the sort of crap that I love one, in that I actually don't mind a mediocre horror film. This isn't even mediocre. This is just like bottom of the barrel scraping. Like it became a bit of a trend during the 80s and the 90s that if you were having a horror film, there's going to be some sort of scantily clad woman killed at some point. You're actually at the point in this film where the women aren't even scantily clad until the minute they're about to be killed, because Winnie the Pooh pulls the top off first and then kills them. It's just like there's just no imagination in this film at all, and it is just absolute drivel. There's going to be another one though, because it made a bit of money based off the fact that it cost 20p to make. So, yeah.
I do remember like the concept being intriguing. It's like because the copyright had run out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And like so, someone has obviously just gone right. How far can we push this?
Absolute drivel.
Wow. Yeah. Does Jim Cummings voice anybody in it? Because I don't think
so.
That would be hilarious.
I would hope not.
As he like kills the woman and like gets blood all over him, he looks down and he's like, "Oh bother!"
Oh, no, it's just the thing. As the sort of the sort of concept of the film, if you can call it a concept, is that Christopher Robin left all these animals behind, and that because they had to survive, they killed Eeyore first and they ate Eeyore first.
I'm surprised Eeyore didn't kill himself.
Well, and then roaming around is Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. So, and they just want to kill people.
So they didn't even bother to do like the obvious thing of talking about how each of the characters in the 100 Acre Wood represents some form of trauma or mental illness.
No, there's nothing like intelligent about it.
Piglet with anxiety, Rabbit with OCD, Tigger
with ADHD,
yeah, an attention problem, Owl's a narcissist.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, none of that.
Nope. One by one, they ate each other to survive. Yeah.
So it's Winnie the Pooh meets Highlander.
Yeah, absolutely. That's me number 10. Holly, if you are ready to go.
I am. I think mine are going to be more controversial, and I do not do this to be an edgelord. I would never try to take that crown away from Ollie.
Oh, sure.
I really wouldn't. This one, I just hate this film, and I know a ton of people love it, and I'm not going to bash those people. It might just be something that I don't see. And that's Taken from 2008, the Liam Neeson action movie. I love action films, and I went to see this with my housemates when I was at uni, and they both loved it. And when I came out and said that I hated it, they could only imagine it was because I don't like action films. And for me, it's the complete opposite. I just think Taken is nasty action. It's not fun. It's not like dynamic. The action scenes aren't like clever, or the way they fight isn't interesting. It's just dull. It's so strange, the storyline. We have Liam Neeson trying to save his daughter, who looks 33, but he treats like she's 14, who is sold into sex slavery the second she arrives at Paris airport. Obviously the scariest place on planet Earth. And he rampages across Europe trying to save her by punching lots of people who don't really look European. So that brown man bad is basically the message that I get from Taken. I just hated it. I hated it. And there are plenty of action films which are really gung-ho, which are really like miracle, yeah, that I still love because the action sequences are fun, or everyone who's in the film knows the assignment. But I just didn't feel that with Taken. I could see the embarrassment on the faces of Liam Neeson and Famke Janssen, and everyone associated with this film just looked a bit bemused the whole time. I just hated it. It's one of those films where I read a review when I came out of the film afterwards, and the Guardian had 2 reviews up. One was 1 star and one was 4 stars. So I think it must be one of those films that you just get it or you don't, and I absolutely did not.
I actually quite like the first one. The
Yeah, I
second
quite
and
like
the
the first
third
one.
are trash.
Yes, or is it the third one where there's about 7 edits in the shot to get him to climb over a fence? Because Liam Neeson is quite an old but very
Can't
large
climb
man,
over a fence,
so he can't climb over a fence. But at the same time, nothing Holly said was wrong. I didn't disagree with anything. Like, thinking back as well, like, it is one of those, it is that era of action movie where, for whatever reason, the director clearly had the brief to the camera operators of make this action as hard to follow as possible.
Yeah.
Like, it just jumps all over the place to try and make it feel frenetic. And
Jamie agrees.
Jamie really hates Taken.
Was it just after The Bourne Identity? Is it another film that's trying to emulate what The Bourne Identity did, which was this really gritty, hand-to-hand, close action sequences where you're not quite sure who's getting the upper hand, except that The Bourne Identity did it in a really like frenetic, oh my God, what's going on kind of way. Whereas Taken was just like, oh my God, what's going on?
Literally, what's going on? It's so dark, I can't see a thing. It also, like, it even has that cliche from like horror films of, you know, you don't get to survive the film if you've had sex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like her mate who goes with her, she gets taken to that like crack den immediately and shot up with so much heroin that she dies. Whereas Liam Neeson's daughter, because she's a virgin, which I don't know how they knew that, there's no medical way to examine that. But if you know, because she's a virgin, she got sold to a sheikh, because that's what sheikhs want to do, don't they? They want to come to Paris and buy young virgins. Just like thinking back on it, that film is very problematic.
the only thing I can think of, the only thing that makes sense to me about this film is the 2 directors were French. So I'm just assuming they were trying to stop American tourists coming to Paris.
I do.
Their goal, they nailed it.
I do love the bit where there's that guy who's like moved his way up in like the French, I don't know if it's the French, if it's like GSGN or whatever, but he's moved his way up and he was his point of contact. Jean-Luc, I think he's called.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes and his wife's like, oh, Brian's here, da, 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 da. And then he just shoots his wife because like he pulls a gun on him because he's betrayed it. Yeah. So Brian's like, oh yeah, you've forgotten what a loaded gun feels like. And he shoots his wife and I'm like, yo! Like that moment to this point I love, because like, it's like you wouldn't even see the Punisher do something like that. Whereas Brian's like, nah, this is my baby girl we're talking about.
Brian Mills.
Yeah, my 33-year-old baby girl.
Oh, dear. Go on then, Ollie. Ollie, even. Go on.
So we have a choice, people.
Okay.
Because being a Disney fan, I had to get the worst of Disney in here somewhere. And with that comes to mind also Pixar as well. So the choice I'm presenting you to, a rare in this one, is the worst of Disney, and it is objectively the worst of Disney. This isn't you know, an opinion thing or anything like that. I'm not going to annoy anyone with this. Versus the worst of Pixar. So in the red corner, the worst of Disney, I have Black Cauldron, the film that literally almost killed Disney because of very, very lackluster animation, very lackluster character, very convoluted plot, which I'm aware was taken from a book, but maybe it just didn't translate particularly well. It's hard to follow. Not a single joke in it lands. Every attempt that they have at being funny, you're just kind of like, at most, you're like, nah. It's very like, and I've seen this film a couple of times as well because I am like morbidly curious. And we're at the point in me and Georgia right now in our Disney marathon where we're up to this, and I get the feeling that Georgia's just putting it off repeatedly because it's just got this reputation. Like the only thing I enjoy about it is John Hurt as the villain, and even then he is given some lines. It's, you know, it's like listening to Ewan McGregor try and plod through the prequel script. Like, you love him, but God, he's trying with some of those lines. So that's the red corner. In the blue corner, I have the worst of Pixar. Any ideas what that might be?
I get the
Cars
feeling.
2.
Go on, Hal.
Cars 2.
Cars 2.
Yeah.
Cars 2. It's just, I don't like Cars, but I get the appeal. There is an individually nice moment in it at the end where he refuses to, finish the race so he can help the veteran in his final race across the finish line. And again, in number 3, I like that it sets up as like this big comeback story, and then kind of halfway through he realizes, you know what, I'm past it. This isn't about me anymore. So there are like individually like nice moments in these other 2 films, as kind of cynical and geared towards kids as they clearly are, because I think they are the biggest money spinners for Pixar, just out of the merchandise and stuff like that. From a merchandising angle, I can absolutely see why you do something like Cars 2. If you can have a Finn McMissile car that shoots out spider gadgets and stuff like that. But for it to be such a deviation on the original film that wasn't that good anyway, and for it to focus on one of the most annoying comic relief characters ever as the main character is just bizarre. It literally is just bizarre. So do we have a pick? I think I know which way I'm leaning, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think probably deserves to be there more.
I've not seen Black Cauldron. So
have you not?
It's Cars 2.
Have you seen it, Hal?
No, I haven't. So I'd have to say Cars 2 as well. But I think from your description, cynicism is worse than a swing and a miss.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Black Cauldron was not creatively bankrupt. It was just they had no money and therefore it was made cheaply. I just look at what they did like not long after as well with Great Mouse Detective. Me and Adam were like, yeah, that's a 2-1. Get that bad boy up there, because Basil is the most important mouse in Disney history because he saved them and let them go on to become the Disney Renaissance, which then allowed them to basically take over the world, which is what they've now done. So Basil is more important than Mickey, and he does not get the respect he deserves. Well, yeah, all right, I'm happy with that. Cars 2 at my number 10.
Number 9. Holly, your number 9.
Well, I was saying earlier in the honourable mentions about films you have to put on at the end of the year when you're a teacher. And this one I have included because I have to watch this many, many times, and I just think it stinks. And it's A Christmas Carol from 2009, the Robert Zemeckis one. I hate it.
Okay. I know you didn't say it, but I really panicked that it was Muppets Christmas Carol. And I was like,
Muppets Christmas Carol is a classic beyond anything.
It's a masterpiece.
The Robert Zemeckis one is just so dull. It's so dark. It's so, for an animated film, it's just so muted and uninspired and unimaginative. The characters' eyes are just dead. It's that horrible technique they had with Polar Express.
Oh, God, please don't remind me of that film.
Yeah, that just, I don't know. I think many of these films are an argument for just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And because that technology was there doesn't mean it's going to excite people or make a good film. And I think, yeah, there were some good performances. I think Jim Carrey does a good job. But the visuals are just so mucky and murky that several of these kind of sight gags that they add in just don't land at all, because you can't see what's happening. There's a part at the beginning with Marley's ghost where his jaw falls off when he's screaming. And I've seen this film. I must have seen this film 10 times because of studying A Christmas Carol for GCSE. I still can't see when his jaw falls off or what this character is doing to stick his jaw back on, because the visuals are just so dark. So all of these visual gags fall flat. I'm not the biggest fan of Dickens anyway, but there is a way to make it fun, and there is a way to modernize it, and this film just misses it so badly.
I'm not that into Dickens does seem a very bold take from an English teacher, it must be said. Like I'm in no position to talk about it. You're entitled to it. It seems, especially in the wake of like all the changes where we have to have like an English author at GCSE. You're not allowed to do like Steinbeck or Harper Lee anymore. Yeah, Dickens is so overrated.
I mean, I don't think it can be interesting to analyze. It's just not my cup of tea.
Fair dues.
Never seen it because like I didn't like the look of it from the outset.
Yeah.
Like it's the visuals that put me off immediately.
I've seen bits, but again, it's not something that I'm rushing to sort of go.
Yeah.
Your number 9, Ollie?
My number 9 is the only film I have ever stayed up to watch a midnight screening of.
Wow.
And I remember trying to convince myself that I had fun with it as I was coming out because I was kind of tired. And then on reflection, it's like, no, that was a mess. And it was Suicide Squad, 2016. It's
very, very nearly made my crap you love list.
Really? It just, there are a couple of it, like the casting, I was happy with pretty much all of it, really. Like, except like Jared Leto as the Joker kind of won me over in the first advert. But it's so obvious that the studio panicked based on the reception to Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, we were going to get this incredibly gritty, like, horrific story, which is what Suicide Squad is. A Black Ops group of criminals set up to do something that the superheroes won't is an incredibly dark story. And we didn't get that. And Jared Leto, like his original, like his Joker laugh in that first trailer where we got the first look at him was like, oh, chills. And his, oh, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to hurt you. Like, that was really good. It was a little bit of Heath Ledger, but not too much. And then the second trailer had Bohemian Rhapsody playing in it and lots of pretty colours that clearly were not there. And they tried to add in this sense of humour. Like, it was just such a mess. And you even ended up with a storyline. Okay, so the Enchantress is like putting a sky beacon up because we've never seen a sky beacon before. You know, it's not like Avengers did it, what, 8 years earlier? Yeah. At least? Was it 2008 the first Avengers film came out?
2012, the first Avengers.
Oh, okay, so only 4 years. Okay, fine. But, like, and I'm sure lots of other films had sky beacons before then. I'm pretty sure Man of Steel vaguely had a sky beacon. It's like, really? We're still doing this? We're still doing a light in the sky that we're going towards? And why wouldn't Batman have helped out in that situation? Why wouldn't Superman have helped out in that situation? I get why they don't in the Suicide Squad, the more recent one, because that is kind of Black Ops. They're going in to destabilize a government, and Batman and Superman would turn around to Amanda Waller and just be like, no, no, we're not doing that. And yeah, it was just a mess. And the only person who looked like they were having any fun on set at all was Margot Robbie. She's the only one who really looked like they actually enjoyed being there, off to the point where she gets a spin-off film and is actually really good in it. Like, I really like Birds of Prey. I think that's quite a good, solid, alternative comic book film. But this was just a mess. Like, it was joyless.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, wouldn't this be a cool idea? Oh, wouldn't this be a cool idea? And, like, you're sending Harley Quinn in against, like, weird, racially inappropriate zombies because Cara Delevingne is just doing this stance, and you're meant to think she's scary, and she's just not.
The reason why it almost made my crap I love list, because, well, this is the thing, I sort of made a long list, and then I thought, do I actually love those films? And it's like Suicide Squad, like, I like parts of it, I don't like all of it. I wasn't a fan of the fact that you end up with a sort of splurgy CGI villain, maybe not including Enchantress. There are parts of it, I think, character stuff that I quite enjoy. I mean, I love now the fact that the whole Rick Flag exposition of, this is Katana, her sword traps the souls of its victims, I'd advise not being killed. It's like, come on. Like, Just
and that
exposition
was
for
brilliant.
exposition.
Like in the more recent one, they didn't even bother trying to give a bunch of these characters any backstory. Like Pete Davidson's character didn't need any backstory at all.
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion and his ability to kind of take off his arms, that's all you needed. Savant, you thought Savant was going to be a big player in it, and then he runs away screaming and gets his head blown off. That's hilarious. Like Slipknot, just some joyless guy who was clear, like everybody called it because he wasn't in the promo material at all. So he was clearly there to be killed off.
First kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First kill, just to be like, oh yeah, by the way, I've got bombs.
Yeah.
In all of your brains, and there it is, boom. Like,
Yeah.
I did enjoy Jai Courtney, actually. I think he looked like he was vaguely enjoying himself. And to the point where I was actually sad, spoilers, I guess, where he dies in the remake or the new one. Because he has quite a nice moment with Harley on the beach and then just gets absolutely shredded by a helicopter. But
the new one is good.
yeah, like the stuff with the Joker, it just didn't need as well. Like imagine, like, because I think originally everyone was thinking the Joker would have been the villain in it.
Yeah.
And you could have seen that making a bit more sense, but then they probably realized, oh, we've got Enchantress and she's like way too powerful. Like, but I don't know. Yeah, it is just a weird mess of a film, and
I can understand.
It wasted a midnight viewing. Now to the point where I'm like, no, I'll just wait until I'm kind of conscious.
Normal time.
Yeah.
Oh, right. My number 9 would be significantly improved if it includes some of the things in the Suicide Squad, like bombs and all that kind of stuff. And it's one of these that Holly's been mentioning, where because it gets to the end of the term and the kids go, oh, can we watch this? Can we watch this? Can we watch this? And for some reason, this keeps coming back around. Grown Ups 2. It's absolute, like, I can't, it's just mind-numbingly awful. And everything that's wrong in society is in the sentence that says this film grossed $247 million on an $80 million budget. Never mind the fact that it grossed that much money, but the fact that it cost $80 million to make this absolute trash. It was nominated for 9 Razzies at the Golden Raspberry Awards, right?
Is it one of the Adam Sandler specials, Grown Ups 2?
Yeah. Yeah.
One very slight word in defense, and I think you'll be able to see this. I do respect the because it's an Adam Sandler project, isn't it? It's his production company.
Yeah.
I do respect the hustle of him clearly just turning around to all of his mates and being and just being like, watch this. Like, and he just scams a studio out of $18 million so that him and his mates can have an absolute jolly and then earn a shed load of money off the back.
He's doing it now with Netflix. I'm sure he's admitted that with Murder Mystery or whatever it's called, that he just saw it as a holiday.
I've heard good things about Murder Mystery, though.
Well, yeah, it might be.
Like, compared to stuff like Jack and Jill and Growing Up and stuff like that.
The Adam Sandler thing is that I've heard he's very good in Punch Drunk Love. I've not seen it. And Uncut Gems, and like he can do it and he can do it well, but then I mean everyone would do it, wouldn't they? If you're gonna make money, you'll make the money doing this. Yeah. The thing that pains me the most about this film is that Stone Cold Steve Austin's in it, and I can't like it. It's come on. So a quote that I pulled: while it's almost certainly the movie event of the year for filmgoers passionate about dear urine humor, Grown Ups 2 will bore, annoy, and disgust audiences of nearly every other persuasion. It's just that bad that when I sort of say to, like, if I get to a point where I'm like, right, I'm going to put a film on, what do you want on Netflix? And all of them go, Grown Ups 2. I'm like, no, why would you do this to me? I don't want to see it. I don't want to watch it ever again.
This is why you don't put quizzes on for your class. You don't put films on for your classes. You make quizzes.
This year I didn't. I was like stalwart me, and all the other kids like, oh, but they're watching something over there, and I'm like, yeah, but you're.
I'm amazed you don't do like a film quiz for them. I think they'd love that. You make it competitive. You offer a prize to the winning team. I've done that.
Never crossed my mind, but maybe next time. But yeah, there's my number 9, Grown Ups 2, absolute tripe drivel.
It does sound it, to be fair.
It's just ridiculous. Ollie, number 8.
I've mentioned a couple of times that I think my mum probably deserved a lot more credit than I ever gave her for me being as into film as I am in. You know, were it not for her, I wouldn't have watched The Matrix. I wouldn't have watched Alien. There's a bunch of I wouldn't have watched any of those like classic horror films like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. She buffed all of those. However, there is one film, and I do love it, but there is one film that I hated her for making me watch. I was talking to my dad about it yesterday because I said I was doing this podcast, and he's like, "Oh, is this film going to appear on your list at number one?" I was like, "No, but it is appearing on my list." And I said to him, and it made him laugh. It's the one film I've ever resented my mum making me watch, because she made me watch this with her because she really wanted to watch it and she really loved it. Mamma Mia! Oh, oh God! Just look. I am not the biggest fan of ABBA to begin with. I don't hate them. And if it comes on and you're at a party or whatever, you get a bit of Waterloo or whatever, of course you're going to dance along to it. It's a bop, fine. But I don't think anybody is of the opinion that ABBA produced phenomenal music. It was catchy and it served a purpose, but you're not listening to it in the same way you'd listen to, I don't know, like Pink Floyd or something like that. Like, so already we're not off to a great start with every single song I'm about to hear. All of the performances in this film come across as like people acting like they're in a high school version of the stage show. And we've got very talented actors on this billing, very talented actors. We've got Meryl Streep, we've got Amanda Seyfried, we've got Stellan Skarsgård, we've got Colin Firth, Julie Walters, Christina Baranski, even Piers Morgan gets a bit of
Piers Brosnan.
Yeah. Piers Morgan. Piers Brosnan, yeah.
I thought you were purposely dodging Piers.
Yeah. And Dominic Cooper as well, who's like, I love him in Preacher. And as problematic as a film it is, because he's a white actor playing an Iraqi, I love him in Devil's Double as well. But I didn't enjoy a single second of this film. I didn't enjoy a single second of the story. I thought every single song felt shoehorned in, and it comes back to that idea that I was talking about with Pixar before, cynicism. It just feels like such a cynical cash grab, and people will often argue, "Oh, but look, every single jukebox musical does that." No, and I say, fine, but no other jukebox musical has had however many millions of dollars put into making a film adaptation of it. And two, a lot of them actually make an effort with their plot as well. So, All Shook Up, that's an Elvis jukebox musical. It follows basically the story beats of 12th Night. And it's incredible. Like, it's genuinely great. 9 to 5, rave reviews, everything I've seen about. I'm going to end up seeing it because one of George's mates is performing in it, I think later next year. And yeah, the story's great. Our House, you wouldn't think that Madness would have music that fits a musical, and yet it does. We Will Rock You, fantastic. The next show I'm doing after Funny Girl with the company I'm with is Rock of Ages. I can't wait, because the story of Rock of Ages is great, and the way they slip the songs in is either really clever or really funny. And
Please tell me you're Stacey Jacks.
I don't want to be. I was going to audition for Stacey Jacks, but the stage version doesn't have Pour Some Sugar on me.
Oh.
Yeah, so not interested. I'm going to be Dennis, I hope.
Is that the Alec Baldwin?
That is the Alec Baldwin guy. I even want to be Dennis.
That's what I thought straight away, but I thought I want you to be Stacey Jacks instead.
But like I said, I would have gone for it, but because in the nice, I'm one of the few people that are back in the company at present to be able to sing it. But the guy who played Sweeney when we did Sweeney Todd, he is Stacey Jacks.
Right.
He's got the look, he's got the tattoos, he's got that kind of grin, but it's a predator. And but yeah, he is Stacey. If he goes for it, he'll get it. Right. But yeah, back on track. Yeah. This, I just felt nothing. I remember genuinely, do you know The Unbearable Weight of Immense Talent?
Yeah.
So that look when they're in the car and Pedro Pascal is doing that face.
Yeah.
And that's the face that made Georgia fall in love with Pedro Pascal, by the way. the face that Nick Cage pulls at Pedro there, that kind of.
Yeah.
I literally did that to my mom. It's like, what did you just make me watch? And she's like, oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. I was like, yes, it was. It was that bad. I hated every second of it. It was a waste of time. I hated it.
I won't do it because of how much I like the ABBA, basically, discography singles. Like, I'm not a huge fan. I kind of grew up with other people around me listening to them. I'm not going to go and watch, like, ABBA Voyage. But I won't do Mamma Mia because I actually like a lot of these songs. So I don't want to have my my tastes tarnished. Right, my number 8. First into remake territory. 2010, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, this is bottom of the barrel, just cash grab, not interested in making anything that's worth remembering, building on everyone's sort of interpretation or knowledge or love of Freddy Krueger, and basically squandering everything that made the original. Now, to go off the thing that I pulled, so visually faithful but lacking the depth and subversive twist to make it memorable. It lives up to the title in its worst way possible. Now, I have a bit more of a personal story with this one. So me and Amy went to go and watch this. And at the time, we were...
It's a date night movie.
This was a date night movie. Thankfully, we'd already been together for 3 years at that point. So, she was kind of in. Otherwise, she'd been gone. Now... We were talking to somebody who was a friend of somebody else on Twitter, and he basically said, I don't know what you're talking about. You saw the wrong film. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. You're not a horror fan, because if you were a horror fan, you would appreciate this. And I said, mate, it's absolute trash and drivel, and it's not thinking. He then went as far as blocking both of us on Twitter.
What a cry arse.
And then body shaming us on the way out.
Wow.
So it was just like, well, if I'm not a horror fan because I didn't like this, I don't want to be a horror fan.
Yeah.
Because it's
you don't understand horror, also you're fat. Okay.
Yes. And it's absolute, just like Jackie Earle Haley. This is around about that time where he'd sort of reappeared in stuff like Watchmen and Shutter Island.
I do like Jackie Earle Haley in this.
Like, you can tell what he's trying to do.
He had an impossible job. Robert Englund has made that character an icon.
Yeah.
And you can't follow on from that.
No one's really coming and touching it, have they?
Yeah.
But it was I just sat there bored. And against the irony of the fact that almost fallen asleep. And like, you wouldn't have a dream of Freddy Krueger at that point invading your dreams. You'd just be like, well, I'm glad it's over at this point.
Yeah.
Now, I will say a lot of these films are sort of early 2010s, because this is around about the time where we'd got Cineworld cards, me and Amy, while we were in uni. So we went to go and watch a lot of stuff, a lot of tripe, as we will get to. But then as well, like, remakes, some are good, some are bad, but there was an awful lot of dog doo-doo early 2010 time. So, yeah, strap in for the rest of those.
They definitely missed the point as well, didn't it? Because the original Nightmare on Elm Street, I swear it's only like 3 people die in the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, this one just wanted to kill everybody and anybody.
Yeah, and like...
anyone who just happened to be asleep.
And Wes Craven's entire philosophy was basing his films off of, like, real things that he'd read.
Yeah.
So I think he said that this was like Cambodian refugees who would like refuse to go to sleep when they had been, kind of sequestered and rescued.
Yeah.
And they would be given pills to go to sleep, and then they would die. And there's no medicinal reason that it wasn't that they'd overdosed on sleeping pills or anything like that. They would die. And off the back of it comes this like weird plot about a demonic child predator who was haunting them, and it was quite mysterious as well, because he, like, in the subsequent films, he just like cuts his way through everyone, whereas in this one, I remember like the second guy to die, like, he frames one guy for killing the first girl in What's the Best Death in the Scene, where she's like spinning around the ceiling and everything, But he then hangs the second guy to make it look like he's done it to himself. And he doesn't do stuff like that. It's always like, oh, I've turned into a television and I'm going to grab you and put your head through me. Like they just missed the point of what made Freddy scary.
Because this is the thing, it's like you go from like the original with like you say, like a Wes Craven clearly putting everything into it, clearly writing it, wanting to make it off his own back, to then somebody who has no interest in it whatsoever wanting to remake it just because you know that it's probably going to make a quick buck. I don't think it was actually that successful. So it was, but there was a string of these where they'd remade like classic horrors. I actually didn't mind the Friday the 13th remake, and even My Bloody Valentine, which was a gimmick because it was My Bloody Valentine 3D and everyone ducked at a pickaxe coming your way. But but this was just the worst of the lot. I do think it is my only remake on my list. Depends what you call something later on. But so that's Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010. Ugh. Holly, number 8.
I was just thinking, it's funny how you were saying that most of yours are from the 2010s, because that's when you had a Cineworld card. All like a strange amount of mine off both lists are from 2004. Oh. I was like, what was I doing in 2004 and 2005 that I was watching all these rubbish films? Sixth Form. There's like a really, really big number of films that are just from 2004, because I obviously had too much time on my hands and I was going to the cinema a lot. So my next one's not 2004, it's 2001. It has 43% on the tomato meter, and it is Vanilla Sky.
Oh, okay.
I hate this film. I'm not a gigantic Tom Cruise fan, but I absolutely give him all the credit in the world for being an amazing action star. Like, he is one of the last, like, Hollywood stars where you can just say, this guy has star power. If he's leading a film, it will be worth seeing if it's an action film. And then he can be a bit player in a comedy film. Now he's kind of got those chops as well. But as a dramatic lead, I hate him. I just hate him. And in Vanilla Sky, where he's playing this horrible narcissistic character that I just do not care about for 1 second, I just don't think he had the chops for it. And if it was a better written film, or if it had a more interesting plot, or perhaps like an easier plot to follow, maybe I'm just not clever enough to follow this plot because it's so convoluted. I could have enjoyed this film, but it was a perfect storm of rubbish, completely nonsensical plot, a lead actor who didn't seem to understand what was going on either, a main character who was really deeply unlikable, a weird big thing about a mask. He's wearing a mask for most of it. I don't understand why. He's looking for his soul. I don't really understand why he doesn't have it. I just hate it. Just really pompous nonsense.
There's been a lot of films like that, late 90s, early 90s, where people are trying to find their soul or trying to find themselves. Like, what dreams?
Yeah, Hollywood had a message for us. Oh, you're losing your soul. Give us all your money.
Yeah, just like, come on.
That's occurred to me though, because obviously I've not got like his filmography up in front of me, but there was a point where you absolutely could and would trust Tom Cruise to be your lead in a dramatic film. Like, I'm thinking maybe not lead, but he's a very important dramatic role in Interview with a Vampire.
Probably stemming off. Yeah, you're talking 90s, and I think
Few Good Men. Few Good Men. Yeah. He's absolutely incredible in that, and it almost feels like Vanilla Sky is the cut-off point where he no longer does those kind of dramatic films anymore.
If you consider what happened with Tom Cruise prior to Vanilla Sky, of Eyes Wide Shut, but then getting the Oscar nom for Magnolia, like maybe he's thinking, I can do this, this sort of deep introspective type stuff, when actually he's probably better off just doing like Smell the Fart acting.
It's not a spoiler to say Magnolia was definitely something I was thinking about for my critical films I hate list. So I'm just a hater on Tom Cruise when he's in a dramatic role, I think.
Have you seen Few Good Men, Hall?
I didn't love it. I know,
You can't handle the truth.
I can handle that it's a good film. It's just not my taste. Good film. It would never be in my critical films I hate list. It's definitely good. Just
because it's one of those
wasn't one I loved.
Because I often because Jack Nicholson's one of those actors you can often accuse of just playing himself in every single role that he ever plays. And then I watch A Few Good Men and I'm like, he is bringing something a little different here. And only he could have played Jessup properly in that film. And he's incredible in it. And Tom Cruise actually does really well. I think it is when he's playing that. Maybe it is because he's good at playing unlikable characters. Because Daniel Kaffee is not a likable guy. He's very arrogant. He's very cocksure. But Tom Cruise does such a damn good job at that.
I think it's interesting that you sort of separated it that way, Hall, in that you're saying that him as a dramatic lead, whereas and we're going to do a top 10 actors list. He would be in my list, I think.
Really?
Yeah, mainly because of Mission Impossible's Collateral, Top Gun Maverick. There's an awful lot of films.
I forgot about Collateral as well, to be fair.
That I really like him in. But then at the same time...
By the way, Georgia is shaking her head with
I do apologise.
The universal face of, what the hell are you talking about?
There's an awful lot of films that I just won't watch him in. So really, for balance and parity, things like Lions for Lambs and Valkyrie, I am not bothered by them at all. Stick me Collateral on. I'm there all day. So yeah, maybe I'll have to have a look at my list again. Right, going into number 7s, I'm going to kick us off with my number 7. It's not a very well-known film, I don't think. That doesn't stop it from being absolutely awful. From 2013, The Zero Theorem. So this is
an education here.
It's directed by Terry Gilliam. Now, I like Terry Gilliam. I like his Monty Python stuff. I've not seen things like Brazil or 12 Monkeys. Okay, so I'm not fully.
You've not seen the things that he's known for within a film sense.
No, and maybe this is where I'm missing stuff. But stars Christoph Waltz, and basically Christoph Waltz plays a computer genius tasked with basically figuring out a formula that will determine whether life holds meaning or not. So I think you can.
Before Inglorious, then?
No, it was after.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think you can sort of take from that it's a lot of is that the right thing? Is that what we're doing? It's just dull. Nothing happens in it. It's just Christoph Waltz walking around with a load of computers, looking like he's in the Grinch's lair, and it's just absolute dross. And the thing that I pulled from it, which now makes me interested, right, is fans of Gilliam's trademark visual aesthetic will get everything that they've bargained for, but for the unconverted, that might prove too muddled for you to enjoy. So maybe it's just that I don't like Gilliam enough in terms of his directorial stuff that I missed the boat on this one. But I think that you can't make a film going, if you don't like me, you don't like me. So you're not going to like this, because this was just unmemorable and it was just rubbish. Nothing happens. It's just plodding and it's just, no, didn't like it. Didn't like it.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah. Never again. Holly, your number 7.
My number 7 is a film that drew me in with the title. I really should have done some research beforehand. It's Austin Land from 2013. So the algorithm on Netflix got me, and it knows that I like period dramas. So this came up on like the front page, playing the trailer, and I was like, oh yeah, this looks like nonsense, but the sort of kind of fluffy nonsense that I can watch in the background while I'm looking after my baby. And it is the most bizarre kind of rom-com that I've ever seen. To give you the story, an American woman, is obsessed with Pride and Prejudice, is obsessed with Mr. Darcy, and she wants to find her Mr. Darcy, but she can't find him because he's not real, blah, blah, blah. So she saves up to go to a resort in the UK called Austinland, where everyone basically live action role plays Austin heroines. And then there are actors there playing, quote, love interest. So while you're there, you have a kind of Austin-style romance with an actor who is being paid to pretend to fall in love with you. And then, obviously, because it's a rom-com, he really does fall in love with the guy who's playing the Mr. Darcy alike, who bizarrely falls in love with her as well. But even with that terrible, terrible summary, I could still have enjoyed it, except that the weirdest plot choice ever is this idea that there are actors playing the men. It could have been that the men are like history buffs or something, and they love the Regency period, and they're guests in the hotel as well, and she falls in love with one of them. But the fact that they're all actors and they're there paid to flirt with these only 3 women. I mean, there are hundreds of actors in this country house, and 3 women have paid to stay there. It's mind-blowing how much it must have cost her this holiday. It's basically they're sex workers, and there's a really bizarre plot twist where she's kind of catfish, and it's very illegal what happens, but it's a rom-com, so everyone just kind of laughs about it. And there's the classic run to the airport. Yeah. There's a classic run to the airport where this catfishing, gaslighting thing comes to light, and all that happens is the guy gets punched. You're like, arrest him, please, and his manager. And, you know, surprise, surprise, the guy that she falls in love with and who falls back in love with her, despite her being like this millionaire woman who's just paid to be flirted with, is the only one who doesn't engage in extracurricular activities. So it's very much shaming the people who work there as well, which are really hated. And it's got that nastiest of nasty tropes where like female like predatory behavior is funny in this film. So there's an amazing character played by Jennifer Coolidge who is just constantly,
of course, it's Jennifer Coolidge.
Of course,
oh damn,
constantly creeping on all these actors, and they just put up with it. And you think if you swapped that dynamic, that it was a male character creeping on women for 1 second, this would be a psychological thriller and not a breezy rom-com. It's so strange. I might even suggest you watch it just to see how strange this blooming premise is. And there's like a big side plot about how she's only paid for the bronze package, so everyone at this hotel treats her like dirt. And I'm like, even the bronze package must have been hundreds of thousands of pounds, because they're in like a Tatton Park kind of place with all of this staff like looking after them, and stables and groundskeepers, and it's just the 3 people at a time. But because she's bought the bronze package, she's only allowed to wear grey dresses and very, very ordinary bonnets.
You say all that, Holly. You can't put a price on love.
You can in this film. It's so bizarre. I do not know. I do not know what they were smoking when they came
Who
up
was
with
this for? Who was this for? This doesn't sound like it was, because George is doing some research in the
for
background.
people like me. It should have been for people like me. I would eat this nonsense up on toast. Like, I am the main character if I had millions of pounds to go to some kind of live action LARPing holiday that was just designed for me. But yeah, it takes a very odd turn. But tonally, the film doesn't go with that odd turn. It still seems bright and happy. It's weird, some weird stuff.
So I told Georgia about it, because Georgia was worried that you didn't like it was Pride and Prejudice you didn't like, and I said it was Austin Man that you didn't like. And she looked it up, and just before you brought her up, she was like, "Oh my God, Jennifer Coolidge, sacrilege! It must be amazing. No film with Jennifer can be all bad." And then that was followed up by
Jennifer's the queen.
Yeah, and then a lot of laughter. It's produced. I don't know if you knew this, Al. It's produced by Stephanie Meyer.
Oh no!
Well,
with the phrase from Georgia, no wonder it's shit.
Yeah, you've sorted out the mystery there, Ollie and Georgia. I appreciate you very much. I did not. This is the danger of letting Netflix choose your films for you.
Yeah.
I did not know that when I clicked on it, and I will never get that hour and a half back. It's got Brett McKenzie from Flight of the Conchords in it as well. So I was like, oh, this is going to be funny. This is going to be interesting. And he's a piece of work in it.
I mean, other than his cameo in Lord of the Rings, his filmography is nothing compared to Jermaine. Like, Jermaine has had a career post-Flight of the Conchords.
Britt has been behind the scenes. He did the music for the Muppet movie. He got an Oscar, goddammit.
And he's
music writing. You hear that, Lynn?
Ollie, number 7.
Okay. I vaguely remember Holly being excited at the idea of doing a tier list for this next franchise. Adam, I know I don't think you've put that much stock into it. It's the Bond franchise that we're talking.
Okay.
And I'm going to have to do the thing again of getting Holly, who is someone who has presumably watched the Bond films at least nearly as much as I have. I've watched them a lot. What film from Bond do you think I'm putting up, Paul?
There could be many. I'm gonna guess it's one from the tail end of an actor's run, because my Bond theory is that their first 2 or 3 are very good, and then they become incredibly stale until they swap the Bond.
That's not a bad theory.
So I'm assuming it's like a late Roger Moore.
It's not actually like the late Roger Moore.
Sean Connery.
Yeah, it's a late Connery. It's Diamonds Are Forever.
That Diamonds one is rough.
It's a bad film. It's the in the way that I do occasionally. I don't do the Bond films as much because the rights are kind of a mess. So there's no one streaming service that has them anywhere. This is the point where Adam acts all smug and is like, "Oh, that's why you have physical media." I actually do have the majority of the Bond films on DVD. Actually, this is genuinely the film I cannot bring. Like every other Bond film, regardless of quality, like because I know some of the later Roger Moore ones are a bit rough, but like the last one he did makes up for it by having Christopher Walken as the villain. That's fantastic. I will take that all day. Pierce Brosnan, his Die Another Day was atrocious, but I got a soft spot for it because it hit me in the sweet spot when I was a kid. Because Brosnan was my first Bond, the first one I ever watched was Tomorrow Never Dies. But God, this is a prime example of, and I'll get to this from my number 1 as well. This is a prime example of why you don't just give the audience what they want, from an angry reaction to a previous film. Because everyone was like, oh, this guy's not as good. And On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a terrible film. Didn't have Connery. Bring back Connery. So the studio were like, Jesus, fine, okay. And they paid however much money to bring Connery back. He looked really old. He looked massively out of shape. He looked completely disinterested in playing this part. And it, like, sometimes he deals with like spy stuff, sometimes he deals with like saving the world stuff, and sometimes he deals with like crime stuff. And this one kind of wanted to be a crime film until it wasn't, and then there was a laser that used diamonds or something like that, and it just what? And they've set up having Blofeld, and they're showing Blofeld, and like, so you had Donald Pleasance as the first actor whose Blofeld face you see, and it's like, oh, it's a great reveal, and Donald Pleasance is really good in it. Then it's Telly Savalas, who again is fantastic, and then in this film you get Charles Gray, who's already been in a Bond film fairly recently as well as a separate character, and he's just a really limp-wristed villain. The only thing I like about this film is Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, the two gay assassins. Like, they're great, and you only know that they're gay because they hold hands at one point as they're walking away from the camera. But and they have like nice theme music in the background and stuff. Crispin Glover's dad is one of them, because Crispin Glover's a nepo baby. But it's just such a slog of a film, and there was like no love in this one at all. All the rest of them, you can kind of get what they're coming from. Some of the Roger Moore ones are a little bit exploitative. It's like, oh, let's do a blaxploitation movie. Let's do one that's a kung fu movie. Let's do a space one and stuff like that. But you can see effort being put in. Like, nothing about this film stands out. It doesn't have the best of any one thing. It's not like, oh, but that gadget's really good. Oh, but Moneypenny has a really funny line there, or anything like that. Oh, the Bond girls. Nothing about it is good at all. I hate Diamonds Are Forever. It's the one that I just like, I kind of refuse to go back and watch ever.
I have a caveat to Holly's Bond theory in that I would say that Daniel Craig's ended with the best one.
I disagree. I think Casino Royale was the best one.
It's between Casino Royale or Skyfall for me.
Skyfall is, I'd say it's between Skyfall and No Time to Die.
No Time to Die is definitely swing up, but that's because Spectre was so bad.
It wasn't that bad.
It was. Spectre was that bad.
It was very, very bad.
Come on.
It was that bad. I'm sorry. I don't know why they needed to try and pretend that Christoph Waltz wasn't playing Blofeld. Just say that he's Blofeld from the beginning. They try to build this up. And they did the thing I hate as well. They made the stakes needlessly personal between the hero and the villain. Like, they had this history. They've never had that history before. They've never needed that history. It's the same as what they attempted to do with Moriarty in the BBC Sherlock series. They turned Moriarty into like this weird Joker parody where he's all about just trying to mess with Sherlock, and that's not why people like Moriarty. They like Moriarty because he's Sherlock, but for organized crime, and they pit wits against each other and they respect each other. Like, Moriarty as a character would never kill himself to screw over Sherlock, ever. And fundamentally, they've just missed the point there. Blofeld is just a criminal mastermind, and I had no problem with the idea of tying everything from the previous films together, but also making it that he was Bond's stepbrother because his dad adopted Bond after he became an orphan. What was the point in that?
Yeah.
What was the
absolute
point?
Nonsense.
And that became a massive focus of the film when it just didn't need to be at all.
Okay.
I remember being very disappointed with, like, Spectre. If Diamonds Are Forever didn't exist, I probably would have Spectre here instead, because I was that let down by it. Because when they said, "Oh, we've cast Christoph Waltz," I remember being hyped because I was like, immediately, that's Blofeld. That's Blofeld. And it was like when it's like in Arkham Knight where they tried to say, "Oh, the Arkham Knight isn't Jason Todd." or Red Hood or whatever, because everyone guessed it really early on, and like because they wanted the reveal in there for some reason. It's like, why? Just say it's Blofeld. Just cast him. Say we're bringing Blofeld back, and it's Christoph Waltz, this actor that you've seen smash roles before, and just
Okay. Holly, you're number 6.
Okay, this one feels like low-hanging fruit, and I don't think I have an awful lot to say about it. I think everyone agrees it's a bad film. Perhaps don't agree that it should be on a bottom 10, but it's just not good. It's our first 2004 film, Shark Tale.
how dare Shark Tale's a masterpiece?
35% on the tomato meter. It's just rubbish. It has all those things that bad animation has. First off, it's 1 year after Finding Nemo, so it feels like what do kids like? Movies about fish. Thing. It has an awful lot of elements from Finding Nemo, like the peaceful shark and these kinds of things that Finding Nemo did an awful lot better. The animation is kind of nasty and cheap looking.
Ugly.
The voice cast is very, very starry, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're good voice actors. There's an awful lot of phoning it in, I think, in this film. Apart from Jack Black, king of all animation voiceovers, forever and always, don't have a bad thing to say about him. But this was a stinker. And something that Ollie has brought up many times about animation films, that we don't like it when there are an awful lot of pop culture references that date a film very quickly. And this film is just top to toe pop culture references, like very on the nose chosen music. I mean, they sing at the car wash, at a car wash. I don't have anything good to say about it. For me, it's like scraping the bottom of the barrel of non-Disney animation movies of that time. Boring rubbish.
So cliche. I'm really annoyed I didn't think of this actually, because Georgia, when I was trying to think of films to go on here, Georgia even said, "Oh, are there any DreamWorks you don't like?" I was like, "No, most DreamWorks are, they're either not my cup of tea, but I don't hate them, or I love them." And I completely forgot about Shark Tale being a thing. Like, Oscar is so profoundly unlikable. Like, Renee Zellweger fish, because I'm not like Oscar's the only name I'm going to remember. Renee Zellweger fish, and Renee Zellweger, give her a due, she acts as well as she possibly can in this as well. Renee Zellweger fish literally gives Will Smith fish her dead grandmother's pearl necklace so that he can pay off his debts to some gangsters. He then takes that money and bets it. And I don't care if you think, oh, sure, it's a surefire bet. You don't do that. You're a scumbag. Like, that's on par with the original plot of Toy Story, where Woody full-on grabs Buzz and throws him out of the window. And it's like, at that point, you're irredeemable. At that point, I don't like you. I think you're a terrible character. Not terribly written, like there are people like that, but you trying to be sold as my protagonist? Absolutely not. You're a scumbag.
But what about Martin Scorsese fish?
Oh my God, do not get me started on Martin. Why? Why is Martin Scorsese, like, why is this like the one thing he's ever like?
It was just like, you know what? I fancy acting.
And like, Robert De Niro is in this. And like, he sounds so bored. So bored. It's
counting his money.
I know Robert De Niro is absolute class, but when he doesn't want to be there, my God, does he show it?
I mean, fair play.
Like, quite a few low-level films that he's just there, like, gurning instead of smiling.
Yeah, and it's the idea
grimacing through the paycheck.
And it's the idea that he'd be cool with Will Smith fish at the end of it after everything that's happened. He'd be like, "No, I'm a mafia boss. You still need to die." Like,
okay. Ollie, number 6, Ollie.
Okay. This is a film adaptation of what I consider to be a beloved TV series franchise. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen it. I don't know if Holly's seen it.
I think I may have an idea of what it is.
Who directed it?
Shyamalan.
It is Shalamala, because we're talking The Last Airbender. Yeah, the show is something Georgia made me watch. I talk about this all the time. Things Georgia made me watch, and I go, "Oh my god, how have I never experienced it?" And to be fair, I think I would have watched The Last Airbender more as a kid, but it's just I was a Cartoon Network kid, and Avatar: The Last Airbender was on Nickelodeon, and it was almost like this weird tribalism of no, it's not on Cartoon Network. I don't like it, which is stupid. I don't know, but. Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think I put as my second favorite TV show of all time in terms of dramas, behind Chernobyl. I do stand by that. I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is that good. It is that flawlessly realized a story. It is that clever a story. The characters are all fantastic. They're all very unique. They're all very memorable. All the culture within there is quite well realized. And then you watch the film and it's just dingy and sad and nobody wants to be there. And like one of the first things you see in the first episode is Aang, who is the airbender, the little bald kid that you might reckon with the blue arrow tattoo. He gets freed from the ice by Katara and Sokka, who are from the water tribe. And obviously, they've met someone new. So when you meet someone new, what's the first thing you do?
Hi, what's your name?
Yes. How long does it take them to do that in the film? They travel from the they're in the I think it's the South Pole that Katara lives in. So they're at the South Pole. They meet each other. Aang breaks out the ice. They have a big fight with Zuko. They get off his ship. They fly on Appa to the air temple, the nearest air temple. And Katara at this point says, would you please tell us your name? It's like, you've been with them for days.
Oh, by the way, who are you?
Days. How do you not know this? And then he gets to the air temple and there's a guy there and he's like, do you know why you're here? And then he just spells out all of his history. And like the show told us this. It told us this in flashbacks. It told us this by demonstrating his power slowly and giving you glimpses of it. And the film just tells you everything. And then there's lots of little things that irk me. You see the Fire Lord straight up. In the show, he's kept a mystery. Like, it doesn't matter. He's just a guy, but he's shrouded behind mystery. He's voiced by Mark Hamill, for Christ's sake. So he's got that menacing, Zuko has betrayed me kind of voice. It's great. In this, it's Cliff Curtis. And I like Cliff Curtis. He's a fine actor. He ain't the Fire Lord. He just isn't the Fire Lord. There's an entire episode in the show where they have people from the Earth Kingdom who are Earthbenders. If you're not familiar, if you're a bender in this, it's not a slur term in this show as it is in England. It means you can manipulate that element. So if you're a waterbender, you can move water around freely. The Earthbenders are being imprisoned if they show any ability to earthbend by the Fire Nation because they're taking over everywhere. So they've got them in prison. And in the show, they put them out on a boat because the boat's in the middle of the water and there's no land anywhere nearby, so they can't use their earthbending to help them. In the film, they're just surrounded by rocks. So why aren't you doing anything? And then in the show, like one person will just do this and like the equivalent of a small hill will move out of the ground or a tidal wave will happen. In the film, you get people doing these like really like really intricate dances for a rock about this big to fly past really slowly. It's just everything about it is bad and wrong, and I hate it. Not everything. I do like Dev Patel in it. And I do like the guy who plays Iroh. It's the guy who plays Yinsen in Iron Man.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Dev Patel, he's like this disgraced prince who gets sent out, and Yinsen, I should know his name, He plays his uncle, who's agreed to go with him because he's kind of living in disgrace as well. They're really good, and I think it was a case of Dev Patel got it, so they decided to make the Fire Nation Indian, which fine, okay. They wanted, because the nations are meant to represent different ethnicities. So
yeah,
in the show, I think the Fire Nation are meant to be Japanese, the Earth Kingdom are meant to be Chinese, the Water Tribes are meant to be like Inuits, like so people who would live in like tundras, places like that, and then the Air Nomads are meant to be Taoist, like Buddhist monks.
Is there a new adaptation of this happening?
Yes, so it originally had the original creators. They bowed out, but they left it on good terms. There's some cast photos being released of Aang and Katara. They look so much better already.
Is it a series or a film?
I think it's a series.
All right.
So I think there's a live action remake of the original series, and there's a like a sequel animation thing coming up.
Okay.
George has just messaged me, so it might be relevant. Correct, and spin-off animated series. So it's based on like what happens after the end of it. Honestly, like, to try and turn this into a bit of a positive, if either of you have the time and you're in need of something to binge, I cannot recommend Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix enough. It is that good. It is like, it's great for kids because it's got some kiddie elements to it, but there are some heavy story elements in there, and there's some like really good like grappling with inner demon stuff in there. It's genuinely fantastic. It's such a beautifully wound narrative that they absolutely ballsed up in this film. And Dev Patel actually apologized. Like, there's a clip of him like signing autographs for people. It's like, how are we doing, guys? Sorry, the film was shit. Like, because he's a big fan of Avatar, and like he's a massive fan of the original series. And
at least he's honest.
Yeah, but he was clearly burnt by this. Like, he wanted to give it his all, and that's why his performance in it is as good as it is. But everything around it is just bleh.
And this is only your number 6. So, right, I'm going to read you some stuff about my number 6. I want you to see if you can guess it.
Oh, I like these games.
Right. So it was released in August of 2014 in the UK and Ireland to positive reception from critics. It surpassed the record of its predecessor for the highest gross on the opening day of a comedy in the UK, with £2.75 million, and the weekend with a gross of £12.5 million, the largest opening of any film in the year, remained top for a second week and was the highest grossing British film in the domestic market for 2014.
Oh wait, is it actually a British film?
It is actually a British film.
Oh crap, I'm stumped because I thought it was Hangover 2.
No. It is The In-Betweeners 2. Because it is trash.
I don't hate In-Betweeners 2, you know?
I have never sat in a cinema before with other people laughing around me and me being deadly silent. And what is this absolute tripe that I am watching? Now, the most interesting thing that I did having a look into this yesterday was I pulled 2 reviews because of how vastly different they are, right? So Robbie Collin, like actual film critic Robbie Collin, gave it 4 out of 5 stars, right? And said perhaps the biggest compliment you could pay the film, apart from the fact that it's by and large hysterically funny and unmistakably film-like, with a smooth arcing plot and gross-out moments staged with the verve of a comedy action movie set piece, right? Shut up. What are you talking? This from the person who didn't like Jojo Rabbit. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, he didn't like Jojo Rabbit.
Okay, right? I don't think I've got a hot take crown here. If you like,
what?
If you don't like Jojo Rabbit, I'm sorry, you're an idiot.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to go the other way then. I was going to say, hang on.
No, I love Jojo Rabbit.
Right. And then, in Time Out magazine, my boy Tom Huddleston, not Hiddleston, Huddleston, right, gave the film 1 star out of 5. Said it's riddled with contempt for its characters, for its audience, and most notably the female gender. That a film in 2014 can get away with depicting women as either dumb, hapless, sluts, or ball-busting harridans is frankly unbelievable. I agree with you, Tom, because it was absolutely awful. The fact that you're trying to make me laugh at a joke where someone does a crap on a water slide and then the mate swallows it. No thanks. No thank you at all.
Kevin and Perry's already done that, haven't they? And that was
Yeah,
many years before.
And Kevin and Perry was nearly on my crap I love list, right? But realistically, because I've
Was that
rewatched
badly
it.
received?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that might make it on mine then, because I'm struggling.
Right? Like, I watched it as a kid. I shouldn't have done, but I watched it as a kid, right? And I enjoyed it more than I did then. And yeah, it's just awful. But anyway, in between us two, just like the absolute dreg of society, watching this film, enjoying this film, in this film. Now, I said to you before that there is a 7.10 on IMDb on my list. This isn't it, right? So that's still yet to come. And the last thing I will say on the in-between is too, this, when I first wrote my list, this was number one. Because my go-to response to when kids say to me, what's the worst film you've ever seen, has always been this. But having gone back through my letterboxd and having done that thing of sorting by rating, right, I think I gave this 1 or 2 stars. The stuff that I've given less than that. And that's why it's further up. So, yeah. Because I'll tell you what was helpful with letterboxd. When we did the crap you love, you can filter it by highest rating that you've given it, but then lowest average rating overall. And that brought everything to light.
See, I remember liking it as well in the cinema. I was one of those people that would have known. I loved the sincerity of his song where he sings the entire thing in like 5 keys too high and it's still vaguely in tune. I do get the idea that the attitudes are probably like not great towards women, but I did enjoy, like, is it Simon, the main guy in glasses, just like having that hustle the entire time on that one like gap year girl, and the gap year girl like clearly hating this like dude bro, even though the dude bro's not done all that much to be that detestable. He's just not been the same. He's not been one of our boys, and then they end up together. So it's just like
I will say this, I've not watched a lot of the series, so I'm not a fan of the series, but I did see the first film, and I thought the first film was okay. So then going into the second one, I thought, oh, well, surely this will be okay too. And it wasn't. So
I'm willing to bet if I went back and watched it, I'd be like, yeah, why did I find this so funny?
I mean, it might be an age thing.
I don't know how much younger.
Well, I was 24 at the time.
What year did it come out? 2014.
Yeah.
So I would have been 22.
You would have still been reeling off everything. I was training to be a teacher. Maybe it was because I had all the legislation.
I was so wide-eyed cherub.
I was like, I am now a respectable
maybe I'm just a bit more forgiving because it's like one of the... I'm pretty sure I went to see this with Georgia in the cinema. So we had to stay to film. So there was like Las Vegas was the first film we went to see together in the cinema. Yeah. It's probably a dross film. But I've got really...
I don't mind Las Vegas.
Yeah,
I've
got really good memories of it because I went to see it with Georgia. And then the Lego movie was the next movie we went to see. Yes. You don't like Lego movie, do you?
That's for another list.
You are a bad man. You are a bad man. That's a very hot take.
For the amount of Lego that I get through... it's on another list. So, Ollie, number 5.
My number 5 is Lion King.
The 2019 Lion King.
Yes. I was leaving it blank for a bit to see if you thought I meant the cartoon, by the way. Just to see if your brain would go like that. But yeah, the remake.
I can't believe you've put this on your list.
Why?
I like it.
What's the point of it?
No, I get that, right? I get that, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad film.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's worse than the original in every single conceivable way. it misses the points of the original in every conceivable way. So in the same way that you put Nightmare on Elm Street on here, it's exactly the same argument. It adds nothing. Everything about it is worse. None of the performances are any better than the original. None of the visuals are any better than the original. None of the songs are redone in a way that's better than the original. The new songs that they add are worse. Like, the thing that people do love about Lion King, and the reason it sticks in your memory so much, I go to that opening scene, which I flip a coin on a day, well, not on a daily basis. I'm not that much of a nerd, but like if I'm asked on the spot to be
clock, I've not done it yet.
what's the best opening shot in cinematic history? Because of who I am, my go-to answer is A New Hope. That ship being traced by the Star Destroyer, it's cinema, it's iconic. But I am also thinking that sunrise. But that sunrise is as iconic as it is because of the gorgeous color palette that Disney used for that film. The colors in the original film are stunning. And I know I've kind of bashed the animated film loads on this podcast. I've just suggested that I love it. I disagree that it is the best one. You think it is, absolutely fine. It's definitely in the conversation because we put it in that top tier. You try to put Jungle Book in that same tier, by the way, just saying. But yeah, it is one of the best Disney films ever made. Every single remake that Disney have done something to make it worth doing a remake. They've changed an element, they've improved an element ever so slightly, even if it is something small. Like, I didn't see the point of the Beauty and the Beast remake, but I appreciate that they gave the Beast a bit more to do. I appreciate that LeFou was actually quite a bit funnier in the remake than he was in the original film. It's not a lot, but there are improvements there from the original. Same as Jungle Book. I much prefer the remake of Jungle Book, personally. I think the story grips me more in that. I think Mowgli is way less annoying in the remake. This, nothing is improved upon. Everything is made worse. The fact that they cast Beyonce as Nala, not because she was the best person for the job, but so that she would sing an original song for them that they will put forward for best original song, or just sell loads of records for, or get loads of hits on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. Like, when she's singing Can You Feel the Love Tonight with Donald Glover, it doesn't sound like a duet. It sounds like her trying to outshine Donald Glover. Chiwetel Ejiofor is not Scar. He just isn't. Like, his voice, he'd have been a really good Mufasa. He'd have been a fantastic Mufasa because his voice is nice and boomy. He sounds regal. He sounds proud. He sounds like Mufasa. He doesn't sound like Scar. Scar is ruined in this. Be prepared. One of the best moments in Lion King, ruined. All of the darkness that comes into the screen when Mufasa's about to be killed, lost, because we can't have that, because that's not realistic, because we want to make this look like a nature documentary. Why? Why do you want this to look like a nature documentary? Why am I hearing Jon Favreau say, oh, we couldn't have Rafiki doing that iconic pose with Simba because a real baboon couldn't do that? Well, if a real baboon couldn't do that, I don't want to bleed and see it. That's an iconic pose. That is one of the things you think when you think Lion King. And you have just made that moment worse because he sat there like, The stampede is just everything. Every individual element that you can think of in this is worse. It is pointless.
Have you watched Little Mermaid yet?
No. And immediately, without having watched that, though, I can say that Halle Bailey's a better singer than Jodie Benson. She just is. So, the songs that she sings are going to sound better. And I am intrigued to see that because it looks vaguely like Caribbean where they are instead of being somewhere in Europe. And that's intriguing. I'm interested to see that.
It was okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's okay. Whereas this, the stuff that it did new was just so trivial. And it's just that key direction. I know I keep saying it's everything and then picking on specific points, but I just can't wait to be king. I hate that song, but the visuals that are going on with that song in the cartoon are incredible. That bit where he pounces just before singing and the color palette changes. That's amazing. And then you get all these weird cartoony elements because it's a cartoon and you can put them in any environment and it doesn't matter. And the animals are doing quite anthropomorphized things, and that's intriguing to see. Like, they have a tower of like ostriches and rhinos and gazelles and elephants, and that looks incredible. And in the film, they're just running away from Zazu in a watering hole, near a crowded watering hole. It's so boring. It's such, like, in every sense, it's a boring slog of a film.
So I'm very aware that we're into the second hour of recording this podcast. And Holly's looking after a child, and we're supposed to be doing another one. So some of mine I am going to happily gloss over, apart from my final two, because they are absolutely
I'll
peaches.
try and gloss over. You got defensive of it, so I got offensive. I hated that film. I really hated it.
Right, my number 5 is a 2009 film starring Ricky Gervais. The
Afterlife?
Invention of Lying.
Oh, The Invention of Lying, not Afterlife. Yeah.
Because it's got such a nasty streak running through it of this short and pudgy guy. And I know that I can't say anything, right? Almost 5 stone down, people, right? But him going around and saying to people, because it's them living in a world where lying doesn't exist. And then one day he thinks, what if I didn't tell somebody the truth? And that they just had to believe me, which in a sense is a good concept. But then what he ends up using it for, which is just ultimately greed and glutton, and sort of like him going to women and saying, you need to sleep with me right now, otherwise the world will end. And they go, okay. And it's got such a nasty streak running through it. It is dreadfully unfunny all the way through. There is not one point at this where I laughed at all. Now, this is coming off a string of films that Gervais did, including something like Ghost Town, whereas I actually quite like Ghost Town, whereas I just didn't find this funny whatsoever. So that's my number 5. I'm not
my quick Gervais opinion is that he's very good at coming up with concepts for stuff like this, but he should not be acting in it.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, because he's a bit one note as an actor.
Yeah, like I think Afterlife, as an example, is brilliantly written. He lets it down though.
Yeah, because I think he does play it exactly the same all the way through.
All the way through. There's like no variation. Like, you need imagine a stronger actor in that role that he has. There'd be no question that that's an all-time great series.
Yeah.
Whereas I look at it, and because he's the one acting it, it's like.
Yeah. Holly, your number 5?
This is my lowest rated on Rotten Tomatoes, 11%.
Oh.
So if either of you ever get into trouble, you need a contract lawyer, you need someone shady in your corner, you need to call up the people at Lionsgate, because their contract law team is impeccable. They made the film Allegiant. They got Naomi Watts and Jeff Daniels to be in it the whole way. They got Shailene Woodley. They got Miles Teller, Zoe Kravitz. They got all these like up-and-coming actors to stay in this series, this absolutely rubbish series. And then they got big, wonderful character actors like Jeff Daniels to be in this one. They are spectacular at their jobs. They are the only people who are spectacular at their jobs who were involved in this film, because this film is a fire. It is awful. I hate the whole series. The whole Divergent series, I think, is horribly derivative. It's just someone has seen Hunger Games, decided, oh, that's the genre that young people like. Let's do something like that. What can our concept be? Okay, our concept is that people have to choose one part of their personality that comes to the fore. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. Okay, they've only got one part of their personality. Yeah, that totally makes sense. They don't understand it. Like, they do a test, and if they're an empathetic person, they go live in this tribe. If they're an a-hole, they go live in that tribe. If they're scumbags, they go live in that tribe. Like, How do those tribes work? How does the scumbag tribe do
like
anything?
Slytherin.
Yeah.
Like, they need the empathetic people there, and no one could survive. No one could function if they only had one of these feelings in their body. And you know that because the actors can't portray people who only have one of these feelings in their body. Like, most of the people who are in the, we're dead active, we're danger-seeking, thrill-seeking people, most of them are also empathetic, and most of them are also quite clever, and some of them are a bit scumbaggy. So already the film has fallen down because actors can't possibly portray how one-dimensional these people are supposed to be.
I love the scene in the first one where the Dauntless arrive and they all come jumping off a train. And it's like, look at us, we're the active ones.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous on its face.
I've seen these films once, and I'm with Paul. They are such. I hate those Hunger Games clones.
Yeah,
like Maze Runner.
Like, I don't mind the first one. After that, it fell off. Really fell off.
Really off a cliff. Because this is the final one.
Oh, I didn't even touch Allegiant.
Yeah. No, Allegiant is just horrendous because they escape from Chicago and they find out that everything they knew is wrong. And I'm like, they don't know anything. They're dauntless. They don't know a goddamn thing. All they do is climb and jump, climb and jump, climb and jump. But yeah, it's all actually about genetic testing. And because our main character, Trish, has all of these components to her personality, it means she's genetically perfect. or something. It's awful. I can't explain it. It's so bad.
You don't need to.
How did they get these people to do this? Blackmail.
Yeah.
It must be.
Yeah.
Ganging.
Wowzer. Right.
It's something.
Because like you're right, nothing has touched Hunger Games. You know. I quite like Maze Runner, but
like, I'm not even a fan of Hunger Games. I'm going to put it out there. I don't think they're bad. I just think they're meh.
As to quote Adam, it might be appearing on a list.
Okay. Right, my number 4, absolute drivel again, unfunny. Just like 2014 wasn't a very funny year. I'm just gonna put that out there because
is this Hangover 2?
No, this Tribe came out too. 1 Million Ways to Die in the West. 1 Million Ways to Die in a Cinema.
I really enjoyed that film.
No. The fact that Neil Patrick Harris, right, who I don't mind, but decides to take a crap in his hat. But then the point where we get the joke that he's had a poo in his hat. We don't need an insert shot of the crap falling out of it. Like, but this is the thing with Seth MacFarlane, right? In that I liked Family Guy when I was 12, right? And that bit where Family Guy goes, hey, it's like that thing. And then they cut to where they show you that thing. That's how he directs. It's the only thing that he knows how to do. So even in a film like this, he makes a joke and you get a cutaway from a Western of somebody making that joke. It's absolute, honestly. Like, and this is the most scathing thing that I found about any of these films when I had a look at it, right? Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune said about Seth MacFarlane, a failure of craft. He can't direct action or even handle scenery well. He can't set up a visual joke properly without resorting to headbutting and bone crunching when he doesn't know how or when to move his camera. And he's not good enough to be a romantic lead to anchor a picture either. Like, just stop what you're doing, Seth.
I just love the dumpster fire. I love that he, like, in a Family Guy cutaway gag however long ago, he made a joke about, it's like casting Liam Neeson in a Western. And then
he did.
No, but then it shows Liam Neeson like just unable to break through his Irish accent. So he goes to Liam Neeson and says, "Oh, do you want to be in this?" And Liam Neeson says, "I'm doing the Irish accent, or I'm not doing it."
Like, This is the point of the podcast where I'm now thinking about myself, right? And I'm thinking, why didn't I walk out of it if I didn't like it? Because I'm too stubborn. Because I sit there and think, you know what, this actually might get a little bit better, and it didn't. It's absolutely
I do remember kind of unironically
awful.
really enjoying it though.
Just honest, like, oh my god, it's just awful.
You keep
It's
giving me
just
films I might
awful.
have to put in here, like.
No. But then, right, the next one, when I get to it, this is a film that I actually walked out of. So I'll have to be honest and say that I've not seen the full thing, but there's a reason why I didn't see the full thing. And it wasn't a cinema that I walked out of.
It was your own house. I'm going to the pub.
It was a lecture hall.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Right. There's my number 4, the absolute drivel that was. Holly, number 4.
We have already dissected my number 4 to absolute death. So I'm literally just going to say the title and goodbye. Rise of Skywalker. Goodbye.
Oh,
if only we've got someone to dissect that.
I was wondering if you were just going to go, Pocahontas, goodbye.
Could have, but no.
Well, you know, like, just to sort of preempt everything this morning, Lorraine was on downstairs as I was getting ready, and they were talking about a pig who's made £1 million by painting canvases, and to the theme of Colours of the Wind. And I thought, oh, here we go. Well, but yeah, Rise of Skywalker's trash, isn't it?
Yeah. I have nothing more to say on the matter at this moment in time.
Oh, see, I don't think I cared enough for it even to appear on my list. So,
but I get why you didn't.
Yeah,
but we'll leave it there
because again, the franchise will come up on another list.
You naughty.
Okay, Ollie, number 4.
Okay. We're talking prequel.
Oh.
We're talking prequel to a beloved trilogy. No, not that one. Because we're talking probably the great, like, even I have to hand on heart say, even though it's not my favorite, it is the best trilogy ever made. And then prequels came out that just really botched it. You're going to disagree with me here, aren't you?
I'm not going to disagree.
Yeah.
Worst films list. Yeah.
So no, I'm going to agree, Ollie.
So I'm on. The one that I chose was The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug.
What?
That's the one I chose.
It's the best one of the 3.
It's the one I chose because I tried watching the first one and it was just meandering and like long-winded for the sake of being long-winded. It was terrible. I could have easily put Unexpected Journey on there.
I would have expected Unexpected Journey.
I see what you did there. However, the reason, and it's a very emotional reason that I put Desolation of Smaug, because I do really like Benedict Cumberbatch's Smaug. I'll put that out there now. I love that bit. But I just remember, the first time I noticed the problem was in the first one where the goblins are chasing the dwarves through the mine, and it looked like a PS2 video game. The way it had been shot, the way the effects had been put together, it looked bad. But that was the first time I really noticed it. Where it absolutely hammered home was the chase down the river in the barrels. That for me was the moment where I'm like, no, I'm actively done with this. I'm not even going to bother watching Five Armies. I am done trying to invest anything into this. Like, it's just bad. The way they elongated it as well by having Gandalf have some weird, like, flirty moments with Galadriel. The way they had him be kidnapped by the necromancer who they revealed is Sauron, which they never specifically said in The Hobbit. The way they had that weird love triangle between Legolas, who wasn't in the original book, Tauriel, and the one dwarf who doesn't look like he's wearing any prosthetics, and he makes like, well, I could have all sorts down my trousers. No. Like, it's just... I just remember feeling it was bereft of anything This was the film that made me realize it. Maybe it's an unfair reaction, but this was the film that really made me realize this isn't the same as the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This isn't made with the same love, the same care, the same attention. They are just elongating it for the sake of elongating it. I don't care about any of these characters. I don't think it helps as well that I don't like the book. I've tried reading The Hobbit and I don't like it. But yeah, this was the one that made me realize this is just a bad set of 3 films. And maybe I'm putting too much blame on Desolation of Smaug, but that was the film that really made me realize this is crap.
No, I agree with you 100%, Ollie. That's the one I would put as well.
At least with Unexpected Journey, you could see it going somewhere.
It's
Kind
some
of.
fun moments, but that barrel chase, that did me in. That was it. I was done at that moment.
And just when you consider how good Gollum looked in CGI from 15 years before, the same company comes in and makes these CGI. And I get that technology had changed, so the way that they could render it wasn't the same, but they're just ugly films. They're really ugly. And this was the one that really made me notice it.
Wasn't it something to do with the frame rate? Wasn't the frame rate doubled?
Not, so it looked a lot more messy. But frame rates on TV and when you get ultra high definition Blu-rays, they'll have done stuff with the frame rates on that. Gollum still looks great, whereas the Defiler, Azog the Defiler or whatever he's called, looks garbage. And I said, I don't like the original story because there's 12 dwarves and there's not that much to differentiate them, so it's hard to care about any of them. And I like Martin Freeman, but I don't think he's a particularly good Bilbo. I don't know.
I do wish that it was Del Toro that did it, as his I just remember watching Smaug and thinking, yeah, because this was much better than the first one. And hopefully they're going the right way of it. Oh, Smaug was on my honorable mentions for my top 10 sequels.
What?
Yeah.
I did not press you enough on that then.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's why I'm so surprised. Because I listened to our top 10 sequels again the other day.
I did not press you enough on that, young man. That is a terrible take.
Woo!
That's a shocking take.
Oh my God. I can't cope.
That's nearly as bad as putting Tron Legacy at number 4.
Hey, don't you start. Turns out it's not crap enough to enter my crap you love list. Because I put it in there and then it was 6.8 on IMDb and I thought, oh, that's not crap then, is it?
People think this is okay.
Yeah. Right, whole number 3s. I mean, surely the hatred can only carry on from here. Christ.
So,
Holly, come on.
Hi. Number 3 is probably a film you two haven't seen. I'm very sorry. It's another period drama, but not one set in the modern day. It's Persuasion from 2022.
Okay.
It stars Dakota Johnson as Anne Elliot, and that is
Dakota Johnson immediately.
Well, this is where the problem starts. I got no beef with Dakota Johnson, but she is stunningly beautiful, and almost the entire point of Persuasion is that Anne Elliot is not stunningly beautiful. She has, as everyone keeps telling her in the book, gone past her prime. She has lost the roses in her cheeks. She is a spinster. She is this, she is that. And having just the absolutely stunning Dakota Johnson sitting there while all the other characters around her are telling her she's past it and ugly and no man will ever look at her is just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's not the worst thing about the film. The book Persuasion and other adaptations of it really focus on Anne as this really virtuous character, but not a boring one, because she made a very big mistake in her past. She allowed her family to persuade her not to marry the love of her life because he was too poor. And then she massively regrets it, but she does it because she loves her family, and she is easily persuaded. And at that time, women would have been. And then he becomes very rich. He's in the army and he becomes an officer. And he comes back and he's very bitter about it, which is completely understandable. And she is heartbroken every time she sees him. So of all the Austen novels, it's kind of the gentlest, it's the most bittersweet. It doesn't have some of the very funny, satirical characters that the other books and adaptations do. Some of the characters are really narcissistic and terrible, but they're not as comedic in this one because they really have ruined Anne's life. And you love her so much and you feel for her so much because she really has done nothing wrong, but she's ruined her life just by trying to please other people, that they're not funny. And I think the people who adapted it just thought, no one's going to be able to relate to Anne. She's too passive. So instead of making this character like what she should be, this passive character who becomes more active and independent through the film, she starts off as basically Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Fleabag. They have her stealing bottles of wine and drinking them in her room, talking to the camera, winking at the camera. She's become this kind of rebel, and the reason why her family are cruel to her is because she's so rebellious and seems so modern to a modern audience. It is an absolute trashing of the entire point of the book. It's a beautiful book. When it's adapted well, it is really gorgeous. Sally Hawkins played Anne Elliot in a BBC adaptation of Persuasion in the early 2010s, and I recommend that one. It's not the best. It's quite a short one, but she is that character. She embodies that character, that meek, mild character who's taken advantage of, tries to please everyone, and then kind of slowly gets her voice without completely changing her character. Dakota Johnson was just the absolute worst choice for the direction of this film, and it's not her fault. It's the people who decided, okay, we're going to make her a girl boss.
It's not her fault. She's not a very good actress.
Anne Elliot is the least girl bossy of all of the Austen heroines. They could have done it with Emma, if they could have done it with Pride and Prejudice, but this is the wrong book. It's awful. It's really awful. Has Georgia seen it, and does she agree?
What's it called again?
Persuasion.
Persuasion. I don't know. I'll see if I can get
the Georgia seal of disapproval.
I think she's just, I don't know if she's an Austen head, certainly not to your Persuasion. But yeah, yeah, I mean, my takeaway is just I don't like Dakota Johnson. She's just one of those. She's one of those performers where everything seems to be you get her onto camera and she just looks kind of like bored and confused. She's not seen it.
It's also the not the Dakota Johnson film that I think people would expect in a worst films list.
It would be on mine if I'd actually seen. I've seen part of it, and I could easily put it on there, but it's just oh god.
Yeah. Ollie, number 3.
I've cheated.
Oh.
Twilight series. Pick your poison.
Okay.
It's really like I genuinely tried. I really, really tried to watch because Georgia just goes like, oh come on, because she was watching there, and I was like, all right, I'll sit down and I'll watch some of these with you. And I wanted to not think that they were terrible. I really, really did, because I didn't want, because there is a school of thought that hating on stuff like that is problematic because it's stuff that is kind of geared towards a young teenage girl audience. So by virtue of just being so vitriolic against stuff like that, you are part of a problem. And I can wrap my head around that argument slightly. My counter argument, teenage girls are capable of liking Star Wars. They are capable of liking Marvel. They are capable of liking any series that you would initially say, oh, it's marketed to boys, in the same way it's like, oh, video games are for boys. No, it was just a decision that was made early on because they wanted to, like Nintendo wanted to sell them as toys. So the toy companies were like, right, the stores were like, right, well, we need to put this as boys or girls. So where do you want it to go? And they just went, all right, fine, boys. And from there, it became, it's marketed to boys more, even though girls can play video games, often will play video games. And it's hilarious when they're as good, if not better, at video games than boys, because the boys get very cry-arsy about it. It's very funny. But Twilight is just, it's bad. It is. I've tried to like it. I've tried to like the lore. I've tried to like the alternative take on it. There's some interesting ideas in there. I like the idea of their eyes go red as they have more blood and they go golden as they don't. I can kind of get my head around the idea of some vampires not wanting to be. I don't know, though, why every single vampire looks like they shop exclusively at Hot Topic. I don't know why every vampire looks like a mid-2000s emo.
Or why they sparkle.
Oh, why they sparkle. Like, it's like, oh, I'm hideous. And like, nobody has an emotion in this entire film series. Nobody feels an emotion. The only character that I reliably like is Charlie Swan. Yeah. Charlie Swan is a boss. I love Charlie Swan. I love the way he's written as a dad who just doesn't quite get his teenage daughter that he's estranged from. That's nice. I do like that aspect of it. But it's that idea as well of like, let's pander to teenage girls by giving them these men that they can fix because they're just so broken. And that's more harmful than hating on this kind of stuff, pandering to them, as far as I'm concerned. Like, yeah, it should be like, you've got vampires versus werewolves. And in my head, I guess I'm comparing that to something like Underworld, which fine, wasn't like critically appraised, but the concept there is just so much more fun in how it's realized because there's a brutal war between vampires and werewolves. Also has Michael Sheen in it, and Michael Sheen gives a damn good performance in Underworld. He's incredible. And in this, yeah, fine, he's silly, he's goofy, he looks like he's having fun, but like nobody looks like they care about being there. And like, it looks horrible. The way it actually looks, the way it's shot, the color palettes in it, it's just so muted and bad and horrible. And I just, yeah.
The first one is like an indie flick. And I don't mind parts of the first one. Have you seen the footage online of when somebody or a group of people were watching it on a really badly hung projector screen?
No.
I'll find it to you and I'll send it to you because it's quite funny. Eclipse arguably is the most cinematic one. It falls off towards the end.
I can't even remember which is Eclipse the one where Edward is very slowly deciding to kill himself by revealing himself?
Possibly.
And it's just like, oh, so I love Jacob now. And Taylor Lautner, bless his little heart.
New Moon was when they really brought Jacob into it.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, he's ripped and he's got to be shirtless all the time. Oh, I'm feeling really cold. Edward, you can't hug me because you're so cold. Jacob, you'll have to hug me. And that CGI, I'm sorry, that CGI baby should be burnt in a fire. What the hell are we looking at? That is one of the worst things I have ever seen. And then, I know that's not the film's fault, but like, he imprints on a baby.
Yeah, that's
and I know
weird.
It's not like necessarily a romantic thing, I know.
But it's weird.
It's weird, and then they're trying to explain it with like,
yeah, no, it's weird. It's
literally this thing, and I hate it in the Hunger Games film. I'm not sure the books do this, but I hate it in the Hunger Games film. They take the agency away from the female character as to which guy she's going to choose by making it so that the choice is made for her. So in the film, I think Gale like supports the like carpet bombing of civilians or something like completely out of character like that. So that it's like, oh, I guess I'm going to be with Peter. And here, it's apparently within his character, but it's like, oh, well, I've imprinted on your daughter. So I don't like, oh, George has texted me because she's a big Twilight fan.
Oh, is she?
Doesn't like because female gaze is why it looks that way. Apparently, Charlie with a heart I'm slightly editing this one. Oh, sod off and let us enjoy our problematic soft porn.
Stick around, Georgia.
Yeah.
If you want a really good takedown of why Twilight is so problematic, Lindsay Ellis has a series where
I bet she does actually. Yeah.
Writes her own supernatural teen romance book, and it's a Cthulhu romance book. So Cthulhu is a teenage boy, and there's a teenage girl at the school that he decides to befriend, and it is very, very funny.
On the fact that Edward is hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
Oh, right. My number 3, the one that I walked out of the lecture theatre for, I managed 25 minutes of it, I think. So whether you can say I shouldn't include it on a list here and all that kind of stuff, but at the time, I thought this is easily one of the worst films I've ever seen. The highest rated on my list, 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb. It's a Woody Allen film, Sleeper.
Seen any Woody Allen film.
It's just the most unfunny, pretentious, him acting like an absolute twat. That is, I just couldn't deal with it. Like he's got white makeup on because he's supposed to be a robot. He's got a light bulb in his mouth, and it just to the point where I got up and I walked out, right? And I didn't make a thing of it. I just got up and I walked out. Everybody else stayed in there. And then somebody else who was on the same course as me walked out to go to the toilet and saw me and just kind of give me a look of, yeah. Like, I know why you've walked out.
What was the point of it being shown?
It was on the sci-fi module. So the sort of the whole purpose of it was that we would go through the history of sci-fi with a number of sort of prevalent science fiction films over the years.
So
the first one she showed, like the first one she showed us was Metropolis. There's a dumpster fire, right?
Sure.
And then when we got to the 70s, Sleeper of all the things.
Not Star Wars, although that's science fantasy.
We watched Star Wars, I think, as the sort of nice and soft introduction to sci-fi thing. Because my mate John brought his toy lightsabers in and had me choreograph a lightsaber fight with him.
I remember you saying that, actually.
And then, so I think actually Sleeper might have been to do with genre hybridity because it's supposed to be a comedy. Supposed to be. And all it made me want to do was go home and watch Spaceballs, which I did. But yeah, I'm not going to say too much about that because all my fuel is coming for 2 and 1. But Sleeper is absolute dog do, and whoever gave it 7 out of 10 needs to rethink everything about their lives.
Woody Allen. I don't think I've ever enjoyed Woody Allen from the
I like Nightmare. I like Midnight in Paris. That's it. So yeah, Ollie, we're up here now. They're in the the nitty gritty. Number 2. You can either wind me up or I'll fundamentally agree with you.
You know what? I could see this one winding you up, you know.
Oh no.
I don't it's not a guarantee. I genuinely don't know how you feel about this film, but I could see this one really winding you up.
Okay.
We've got a musical, if you can call it that. We've got The Greatest Showman.
Okay.
It is just bereft of anything. It is bereft of anything I would call good and creative.
It's not a good film, but I like a few of the songs.
No, like I hate, you know how I feel about that kind of, we're going to make great pains to set the film in this time, but we're going to have music that sounds... So, like, Zac Efron, bless him, has been trying for years to shape this High School Musical persona, and now all of a sudden he's doing a High School Musical film. Yeah. It's basically a High School Musical film, this, and I hate the High School Musical films to begin with anyway. It's just grease but crap. But it served a purpose. Like it's made for kids, it's largely harmless. Whereas, and this is one where I think Georgia would have this at her number 1. because she sat and watched it because it was one of those I just blanket for however long refused. Like genuinely refused. And Georgia sat and watched it whilst I was like away at a rehearsal, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen." And just the way, like, because there's a critic in it who's meant to be a bit of a villain, and is like, P.T. Barnum is taking advantage of these people with physical differences, and they're all like, "No, this is me." I hate "This Is Me" as a song because everyone is like, I hate it. It'll come up in not today, but it'll come up. I hate it when people just so hard, especially with social media being what it is now, just going so hard into, "Oh my God, this song is me." Just relating so hard to a song. It's like, it's not about you. It's not about you. Every time that happens, I think about that song, "Repeat Stuff" by Bo Burnham, where it's like, yeah, it is about you because it's about bleeding everyone. There's very few people that this isn't about. It's such a wide casting net that, of course, you're going to relate to it, and is it "Never Enough," which is in this as well,
Yeah.
which is the latest. I'm such a good singer, so I'm going to belt this really badly to prove how good I am at singing. I hate it. I'm like, I love Hugh Jackman, but no, that doesn't say it.
You know what, right? The best thing that came out of this film for me, because Amy likes it, Ruby likes it, they like the songs and all that kind of stuff. The best thing that came out of this film for me was seeing Hugh Jackman live at the arena in Manchester.
Yeah,
where
that's
he came
pretty sweet.
and he did some of these songs. There was a poor girl behind us. He was like, "When's Zac Efron coming out?" And it's like, "You're not here for the right thing."
Yeah.
And then he did like stuff from Oklahoma, stuff. He did Arthur's theme. He did all this sort of stuff that he'd done. He did Gaston at one point.
Good.
Oh yeah. So it was all
But it's just like it's bereft, and I just remember the soundtrack being everywhere, and I am bad, I know, for when something just becomes mega popular and I don't agree with it, even if it's like a slight disagreeing.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at getting my back up against the wall. But you can imagine being surrounded by musical theatre folk who just thought this was the best thing since sliced bread. And it's like, oh my God, it's such a good musical. Oh, if it ever came out on stage, we'd need to do it. It's so good. The music's so good. The characters are so good. The costumes will be so good. No, nothing about this is good.
I remember
it's poor. It's so poor.
So Amy's dad, I think foster would be the wrong word. He cares for 3 disabled lads, which they've sort of been in their family forever. So like Amy refers to them as Uncle James and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he takes them to the cinema, I think once a week. And there was a point where this film was released where it was pretty much the only thing in cinemas because of how popular it was. And I think there was a 3rd week on the trot where he had to sort of go and watch it again. And he was just like, I cannot go and watch that Barnum musical again. And he was just like pulling his hair out. But yeah. Right. My number 2, I want to preface this a little bit. First of all, by saying that this is the 2nd lowest rating according to IMDb on my list. This is 3.6 out of 10. It was released in 2021. I'm prefacing this with a statement of saying, I love my daughter, but she doesn't have the best taste. I am disgusted in the fact that this came out in 2021, at which point she would have been 5.
So not Home Alone.
Oliver. She would have been 5 years old, and I tried my best to hide this from her on Disney Plus, but she found it. Home Sweet Home Alone.
Oh, so close.
Just cannot with this film. She said,
"Dad, Kevin, what does she love about it?
Dad, look at this." And I said, "Don't you dare." And then she came downstairs and said, "Dad, I've seen it twice." I was like, "You what?" Now, I'm gonna quote some people, right? So Jake Wilson said, give it 1 out of 5. and said this is less than an actual movie than a lazy approximation, half-heartedly monkeying with the formula by showing no interest or understanding of what came before it. Kevin Mayer of The Times, everything that happens before the mayhem, the burglary begins after an hour of padding, is excruciatingly forced. And then our mate Clarice of this very podcast, 1 out of 5. Home Sweet Home Alone decides somewhat arbitrarily to switch everything up. The kid is now an utter arsehole while the burglars are sympathetic, which results in the audience rooting for the criminals while just hoping that everyone would quit it and go to sleep. It's just awful. Like, it looks
so cheap in all the stuff I've seen of it.
It's so cheap, right? And the things about it that are winding me up, right? I have nothing against Aisling B, right? But in this film, she's doing a god-awful American accent. The kid who plays Yorkie in Jojo Rabbit is playing the central character, and he's a twat, just to use that word again. I'm going to have to put explicit on this podcast.
This one's not for the kids.
This one isn't for the kids. I already get it in the neck from a year 8. He keeps coming up to me saying, "Oh, you called your friend a fanny on one of your podcasts. Never mind him listening to one of these." It's just, I tried it, right? And I thought, surely it can't be that bad. And it's just excruciatingly.
Even Jamie disagrees with it. Did you hear him coming through there?
It's just the worst. It is the worst, but it's not the worst because it's only number 2. But it's the worst. I just cannot get on board with it.
Yeah.
And I think I'm more hurt by the fact that Ruby's been sucked into it. And every now and like last year, she said to me, she said, "Oh, Dad, so when we watch Kevin on Christmas Eve," I said, "Yeah." And she went, "Are we watching Home Sweet Home?" I said, "No, we are not. How dare you just besmirch our tradition by bringing that crap in."
Don't get that risk with Die Hard.
You do. Live free or die hard. A good day to die hard. Right. Oh, Holly, number 2.
Well, I apologise if there's any crying because I've got an upset baby banked in on my hip currently. There he is. This was the first film I thought of when we said we were going to do this podcast. Partly because I had such a terrible experience in the cinema watching it. I was probably 17 and I thought I'd been invited with a group of my colleagues. I used to work in Argos as like a weekend job.
Nice.
And I thought a group of people were going. And then when I turned up, there was just one guy there. And I was like, oh, God. Is this the date? This is really
And
awkward.
he told everyone else to sack it off. So they...
And then we saw this film, and it was the most inappropriate film to watch on a date you don't want to be on. It's from 2004, because of course it is. And it's called Birth. It's at 39% on the tomato meter. It's Nicole Kidman and Danny Houston, and it's supposed to be like a psychological thriller, but what it is one of the most disturbing premises for a film that I've ever experienced. So it's a woman played by Nicole Kidman called Anna, who is a widow. Her husband died 10 years ago, but now she's dating Joseph, played by Danny Houston. And they're about to get engaged, and they have an engagement party. And at this party, a young lad turns up and says that he's the reincarnation of her dead husband. And the rest of the film is just Nicole Kidman slowly deciding to believe this boy, and then getting in the bath with him in one of the strangest scenes I have ever witnessed. And I was just sitting there cringing because I was sitting next to this guy that I didn't really want to be in the cinema alone with. This scene where like a woman in her late 30s was getting in a bath with a 10-year-old in like a weird thing where he was saying that he was her husband and that she's beautiful. It was so ill-advised, because I guess there is a way to do that film where you do explore the idea of, you know, the sexualization of children and how disturbing that is, or you talk about how the woman is struggling with this idea of reincarnation. But it doesn't go into either of those things. She just kind of believes him, and then it never really addresses, apart from everyone being like upset that this is happening, it never really addresses the abuse that is happening. It's so odd. It's so odd. It should never have been made. It's massively padded out as well, because there's, off the top of my head, I can think of 2 scenes which last like at least 5 minutes, where it's just a tracking shot, and it feels like the director was just like, look how clever I am at doing these really long tracking shots. So there's one where she's jogging, and we just follow her jogging. Nothing happens on the jog. We just follow her jogging in the snow for like 5 minutes. And then there's one where Nicole Kidman is sitting in a theatre, and the play that she's watching like echoes some of the things that are happening in her life. So she cries while the play is going on, and we just look at her face for like 5 minutes. So she slowly cries. And I think we're supposed to think it's really profound, but what we're actually thinking is she going to get in the bath with that boy? What does this boy's actor parents think about this? It's awful. Never look it up. Never watch it. There's a reason why you probably haven't heard of it, even though it's got a really starry cast. I'm sure everyone involved in it wanted it to be buried as soon as it was made. Awful.
I recognised the poster when I googled it then. So
what's it called? Birth,
yeah.
Birth.
I'll have to see if I recognise the poster.
Yeah. Right. Number ones. I'm going to kick us off with my number one. Now, my number one was nominated for 8 Razzie Awards, including Worst Picture, Worst Prequel, Remake, Rip-Off or Sequel, Worst Screen Ensemble, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, Worst Actor, and Worst Actress. Now, Ollie, with your number 3, you said that we could pick. I've picked. It's Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1.
Ah, okay.
Now, the reason why is this one. First one, I think, is fine. Second one is rubbish. Third one is fine. This one is god-awful. And then the second one was okay until they did a bait and switch and pulled the twist from you.
Yeah, I hated that moment.
So with this one, I was thinking, and I told Amy my list the other day. Now, Amy was a fan of Twilight, and we actually went to a midnight screening of New Moon, right? And I worked at the cinema when they were doing midnight screenings of Eclipse, which meant that my shift ended at 3 a.m. So thank you very much for that. But I said to her, this is my number one. She went, is it really number one? And I said, yes. And she went, why? And I said, because they just have sex all the way through it. And that's it. And she went, oh, yeah, it's that one, innit? Now, Murray Pauls of Time magazine named it one of the top 10 worst films of the year, saying that this entry, which held promise, instead delivered soap opera level dry humping in high thread count sheets, which I completely agree with you, Murray, right? Because all they do is have a bit of a hump every now and again. She gives birth to that god-awful CGI monster at the end, and then he imprints on her. No, absolute drivel.
Yeah.
And I apologise to Georgia if she likes these things, but it's crap.
I think, like, because she has moments in Twilight that she, like, I'm pretty sure that's the one that she's like, yeah, I struggle to defend that one.
Yeah.
There's plenty around it that she likes, but yeah. Although there were some, I will share the messages actually. What was the song? So, when women's problematic young fiction books start causing systemic issues in society, then I'll pay attention. Until then, I'll continue to believe it's harmless. Unlike the stuff that young boys consume that does, in fact, have a negative impact on society. What song were we talking about? Oh, it was probably in Greatest Showman.
Was it This Is Me?
Don't know. Probably she does like This Is Me. I don't think she likes Never Enough that much. That's George's review.
Yeah. Right. Holly, your number one.
There are only 2 films I've ever walked at the cinema for. One of them is going to be on my critically acclaimed I hate list. This is the other one. It's Shrek the Third.
Shrek the Third?
Shrek the Third.
Oh.
Wow.
From 2007. I don't know what it was that made me so angry at this film. I guess I was definitely the Shrek generation.
Yeah.
I went to see the first one in the cinema and I was a child and I loved it. I got the DVD for Christmas. I was really pleasantly surprised with the second one because I was going into teenagerhood then and was ready to hate on a kids' film, but actually found it fun.
It's actually better than the first as well.
I don't think it's better than the first, but as the sequels go, it's very good. It's a quality sequel. And then this one, absolutely garbage. So this is the one where Fiona's father dies, which means that they're going to be in charge of the kingdom, and Shrek really doesn't want to do that. He wants to stay in his swamp. It's all very selfish and not really speaking to his wife and this, that, and the other. Not selfish to not want to rule, but the way he talks about it is petulant and awful in a way that Shrek's character shouldn't be. And so he goes off. Jamie takes it as well.
You tell him, Jamie.
You tell him.
To find like a distant cousin who could be the next heir, who is a young lad at the private high school. And then the whole film is just, how can we make this private, preppy school seem like it's modern, but at the same time be set in the medieval period?
Yeah.
So it's like jousting, but it's American football, and a cappella groups, but they're like singing madrigals. Oh, this is so much fun. It's just bad. It's really, really bad. It's that thing again with too many pop culture references, but this time they're trying to do it in like this fun, we're in a medieval setting kind of way. Justin Timberlake's voice makes me want to vomit. His character is just boring. Setting things in high school as sequels has a bad history. Like Monsters University, I thought was crummy. And yeah, it just smacks of we've got no ideas left. But the second one made a ton of money, so we need a third one. I left the cinema. I went next door to Pets at Home, and I named all of the chinchillas. While I waited for my friends to be finished with the film. I just hated it. Absolutely hated it. I don't know how you feel about it. I thought the fourth one was fine, but the third one is my worst film.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a bit taken aback that it's this strong a reaction to it, because it's bad, but yeah, it clearly just hit you the wrong way. That is clearly quite an emotional, like in the same way that mine's quite an emotional reaction to like The Hobbit and even Twilight. It's quite an emotional thing. There are objectively worse films out there, but yeah, it is a noticeable dip, isn't it?
Are. I think, obviously there are much, much worse films. I think the thing that just bothers me more than anything is that complete lack of creativity.
Yeah,
it's like they took a plot from another film and just put a Shrek filter over the top of it.
Well, it took years for them to have any other film that was like, because that was bad, and then it was like, okay, Puss in Boots, Shrek Forever After, and then you get Last Wish, like out of nowhere, being genuinely incredible, like which was weird, but yeah.
Good though. Ollie, I'm assuming you're going to talk about a film that's already come up, so go on.
I mean, this is the only time, and maybe it is because of how much I care about the rest of the franchise. This is the angriest I ever remember being having watched a film. Genuinely. Rise of Skywalker. It is a dumpster fire. Georgia and I fairly recently did a Star Wars look through of all the classic films, of all the mainline films. And it just reaffirmed everything I thought about it. Like prequel opinions changed a little bit, but like my ranking is still very much the same. And I stand for, because I think the reason you said before about this one, you didn't care about it as much, and it's because you aren't a big fan of The Last Jedi, which fine. I love The Last Jedi. I don't think we've talked about it before. I don't think it's a perfect film, but I really appreciate what was trying to be achieved in there with quite impossible standards set in the beginning. Like, oh my God, who are Rey's parents? And I'm there going, oh my God, who cares? You didn't care about who Luke's parents were until you had the rug pull plot reveal. You didn't care. You've never cared about who Obi-Wan's parents are. You didn't care about who Palpatine was at first. He was just the Emperor. You didn't care. So why do you now care about Snoke? Why are we building this mystery about Rey's parents? Well, that was done. And Rian Johnson decided, well, if I go with one thing, I'm going to annoy a lot of people, so I might as well just like get rid of it as an idea. And I respect the balls that takes to just be like, to say to Rey, your parents were nobody, because guess what? To be special, you don't need to have come from someone special. And then this did the thing that I hated in the original. It's like they tried to explain away the lie about Vader being Luke's dad. Of like, oh, what I told you was true from a certain point of view. I've always hated that line, and they basically used it again in this film. And it's just, I really struggle to find anything I liked about Rise of Skywalker. Why bring back Palpatine? Especially with the line, somehow Palpatine has returned. Even the screenwriters didn't know.
We don't know
how. Someone was paid money to write that, Adam. As a creative person, does that not drive you insane?
Yeah.
That Disney paid good money for someone to write that line and for them to greenlight it. And then
that person must have wrote that and gone, checking that.
Yeah,
done
it's
that.
literally from movie pictures. Wait, so Palpatine's back? How did that happen? I don't know. Fair enough. Like,
let's move on.
It's just, I like Ben's redemption. Kylo Ren into Ben, I do quite like that. I don't understand why Rey having 2 lightsabers instead of 1 is the magic that defeated Palpatine. I don't know why her killing him then, instead of when he wanted her to kill him, made a difference as to when he could possess her body or what. Like, I don't get that. They never explained that. It was just dumb. It just, everything about it. And it's all because of all the people who cried about The Last Jedi, saying, oh, this is the worst Star Wars film ever. It's ruined the franchise. No. So all of the attempts at course correction gave us Rise of Skywalker. So that film was literally your fault. If you cried about Last Jedi because Luke Skywalker didn't have abs and he wasn't the perfectly formed character that you decided he should have been, because guess what? He's human. He had a lapse moment. He realized his lapse, but it was too late. Like, I hate the dialogue around The Last Jedi, which kind of fundamentally puts all of these characters on a pedestal as if they're never going to change. And all the people whinging about that not being, not my Star Wars. Well, we got Rise of Skywalker off the back of your whinging, so well done. Tits.
Yep. Well, that was it. 30 films that we all don't like, or that most of us don't like. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to go help the support the podcast, you can go over to the sponsor raffle tease and use the code Farrand for 15% off your order. Stay safe, look after each other. We'll be back with another one. If you've made it 2+ hours in, thanks.
Well done.
Bye.